And if it wasn't for the current ownership group under Connie Nyholm, we would have lost it. It was sort of
shut for 30 years.
It was indeed shut for 3 decades, and it sort of came back as a
country club
type of thing, and then we got racing back here, and it's been brilliant. I first went there right at the very end of the American Le Mans Series era, and then we've been back in the new IMSA era every year. And what we're seeing here this evening in terms of the iRacing event, the IMSA iRacing event, then replicates real life, because it is the GTs that is here, and we don't have the prototypes mixed in here for the last few years of IMSA.
No, interestingly, you mentioned the ALMS. Well, the ultimate lap record is still held by Klaus Graf, when they actually did run P2 cars here in the ALMS with the muscle milk machine, blast from the past for our fans of the ALMS there. But yes, the last few years it's been just a GT track only. It is really, really tight, this circuit, and the idea of piloting several DPIs around here, a little bit frightening. So wisely, just a GT course. But this track itself on iRacing is actually, John, even more difficult than the real VIR.
Well. Yeah, why is that? Come on, go through. You've got all the stats here.
Yeah, basically, the VIR was one of the original circuits scanned for iRacing back in 2007, 2008. So it was accurate to as it should be there. The thing is, in 2014 and 2016, the real VIR was repaved, including widening in several areas. So the track is narrower now. Also, the famous landmark or track mark, the oak tree at turn 12, right at the top of the circuit, well, that fell down. It wasn't chopped down, it fell down, I think, in the storm in 2013, but it's still here resplendent. So we have historical tree racing as well as everything else today, but this track is treacherous, and we've seen that in practice. The cars go off left, right and centre, because one wheel off and you are skating on the grass in a more beautiful way than even Torvill and Dean can do.
Our colleague broadcast colleague Jim Roller some years ago, when we were at this circuit, said one of the things he liked about it, Ben Constantinos, was the lack of runoff and paved runoff area around the circuit. There were consequences, but not necessarily catastrophe. Cars have got faster since then, and they're really, I mean, we don't have wet grass here, but in the early morning in practice, in the early morning in warm-up before races, going off the circuit here, very, very difficult in real life, because slick tyres and wet grass. And there's an awful lot of the areas where the grass runs downhill from the track, and actually getting back on, very difficult indeed.
But the other thing is, everything's a bit slippier in iRacing than you would expect from real life. So you talk about wet grass, it's kind of wet grass all the time. So if you do go and dip your wheel over onto the grass, and there's plenty of places here where you want to really monster the curbs and take that risk and try and widen the track as much as possible. If you do that and you do just touch the grass a little bit too much, you will instantly be spat out. And at some points of the circuit, that means meeting the wall quite quickly. So actually, it does have big consequences here. There is no such thing. Well, there is. Track limits are the limit of the track, and there's no runoff areas at all other than the grass.
Yeah, I mean, I've done many laps in here in many different cars. But Ben and I had a race in the Skippies here a few weeks ago.
Skip Barber, yeah.
The problem is that, as you rightly point out, that the track is cambered, so effectively it's slightly raised above the ground surface. Whenever you go off, I don't know how it's possible. You always go downhill off the track. I mean, that doesn't seem physically possible. And stopping, if you have a big off moment, I don't mean spin off, just because you just get it wrong, you leave the track at a reasonable amount of speed, regain the track without hitting a barrier is really tough.
We've got timing and scoring, of course, at radio-show.co.uk. The video embed is there as well. 33 and a half minutes, a little over that to the green flag. We're in the Michelin countdown to green. Let's take a look then at the Porsche keys to the race here at VIR. It's a circuit, Nick, that, as we've said, has to be taken very seriously indeed. And I've sort of played on words, had a bit of a play. Patience is a VIR tune, is a virtue. There are a lot of places around this track. You just think this is thrown together, don't you? I've actually sat and thought about this. There's a lot of places around this track where it is a bit follow my leader.
Absolutely, yeah. Effectively, really, once you've got to turn 1, so you've had the run down the front straight, and then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a huge sequence of corners where to actually get past someone who hasn't made a quite large mistake is not going to happen unless you're going to punt them. And then you go through the stormingly fast section up through the S's, which take you effectively
all uphill,
all the way up to the South Bend, and then you go again around past the Oak Tree. But then's your big chance. The back straight is a massive straight downhill, followed by a decent braking system into turn 13 to the roller coaster, which is known as the smaller reverse corkscrew. Apparently, I didn't realise that.
And you've got a couple of rises on that back straight as well. Then downhill, and even at that point, the tough part of the track hasn't finished, because coming back onto the front straight to the hog pen, that again, the camber, half a car's width, it's offline and you're off track.
It's basically, you go round that bottom part of the section, which will point out when you get to see the cars. You think you can go quicker than you are, and it sucks you into mistake every single time. And it's like a four-court.
I've got the
first one. I've got the second one. That's grass. And I got and it's a really it's frustrating, to put it mildly, until you get it, unless you get it right. But yeah, there is a good chance on the back straight. You're going to have to be brave, but there's an excellent toe down there as well.
Second Porsche keep the race. Ben Constanduris, stay clean, stay quick. If you're new to this and you're watching for the first time tonight, first of all, where have you been for the last past 4 events? But we can't always see damage on these cars that is going to affect performance, Ben.
Absolutely. The slightest and lightest of touches with another car will cause some kind of physical effect to the car. The driver will feel it. And especially when we've come to these long straights, these long flat out sections, if you have slightly bent steering, for instance, that will compromise your top speed. One of the biggest things, in fact, that's punished in iRacing is the top speed. Handling not so much, but literally if you've made a little bit of contact, and even if you've repaired that contact, you will never have a totally straight car again. So staying clean at the start of the race, getting through those first couple of laps without contact, and then being clever through traffic, especially here where, as we've already spoken about, hard to really find a place to overtake, you are going to need to keep out of trouble.
And the tyres. We put this in every week, but every week we've seen strategy calls that have been slightly different, Nick Dearman, about the Michelin tyres. Some tracks are more harsh on one side or other of the car, and we saw BMW in the last race take just a couple of tyres. Didn't quite work for them. We had a Porsche victory last time out. What's the tyre wear like here, and is it more on one side or the other? It looks a fairly serpentine track with as many left-hand corners as they are right, but that's not always how that works out, because it's about how much energy is going into the longer, faster corners.
Your quick corners are pretty evenly spread. Turn 9, which is right-hander, and turn 10 are probably the fastest on the proper corners. There's a lot of stuff where you're going fast and turning slightly, if that makes sense. From my practice, I didn't see massive tyre wear, but then I'm not running the setup these guys are wearing. If ever we get to the situation like we did in the first race in Sebring, where they can run through without changing tyres, this looks more like it to me. It doesn't seem like a particularly abrasive track, but, and I'm going to absolutely put my hand out here, I'm not running the setups they're running, which may be able to work the tyres much better and hence be faster.
And finally,
can I also add
on,
that
Ben.
Nick is not a professional racing driver and simply just an iRacing fanboy.
God.
So he's
an
probably
iRacing
not
god.
Running the same level as these guys as well.
No,
sorry.
I'm not even going to point people to the replay at the weekend and who out of your team got the only penalty, Mr. Constanduris.
Yes.
But let's gloss over that.
You mean Bin Constanduris?
Oh, very good. I saw you did that. Pace when it counts. Pace when it counts, Ben. And when it counts is actually towards the end of the race. We will have a competition caution, a full course yellow here. That may not be at a strategically advantageous time for anybody. So you've kind of got to forget about that for your strategy. And we've seen that it is possible to make up time near to the end of the race if you've got the car in the optimal setup with the tyres and the fuel level exactly right.
Yeah, save as much as you can before we get that competition caution, because you can then save time in pits, and if you have the ability to save tyres, then you can do that as well. So I think before we get competition caution, you really do need to just be in preservation mode, if you like, and we saw that working quite well in the last round. Once we've got out of that caution period and we go back to full racing and green flag racing, then really push to the end of the race if you can. At the moment, those safety car periods have been thrown at very kind times. It hasn't really punished anyone particularly, which is good, because it is obviously a race control decision. They've always come around the same time. It's just been kind of just after halfway in the race. So I think teams and drivers will be mindful of that, not to push too hard, not to take too much out of themselves, the tyres, the fuel and the car before then, and then push afterwards.
And we could have put the fuel in as the fifth one as well, because in the real world, VIR is always a fuel race. There's a lot of flat out here, a lot of heavy full throttle running around this circuit, and that could be an issue as well. At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us, that will get you to the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre, which is where we all are, spread around the world still at the moment. Hello to Shea Adam, our usual pit lane reporter for IMSA Radio, remembering happy times with Muscle Milk and their prototype VIR. Klaus Graf, as Nick mentioned, having the outright lap record for sports cars around this beautiful circuit. Can you believe the race motorcycles here as well, Nick? And that would be something to see. And a quick note as well, by the way, in the real world, AMA getting back to real world racing at Road America this week, and our good friend Jamie Howe on that broadcast. We wish her all the best and can't wait to see some two-wheel motorsport from the US this weekend as well. So there's our Porsche keys to the race. Patience is a VIR chew. Stay clean, stay quick, and the tyres. Pace when it counts. You can add a bit of fuel management into that as well. Basically, you've got to have everything optimised towards the end of the race. Right, fellas, tough call here. But Nick, you've been really scrutinising the entry list. No Nick Tandy, as we've mentioned. We don't think we're going to see Earl Bamber tonight, so a couple of the Porsche drivers.
And Aychan Guven's
Aychan Guven not in either, Chan not here either. The 09 is an addition, Tom Long, for automatic racing in a BMW. Welcome, Tom, to the IMSA iRacing Pro Series here. Is this a BMW track? Is it a Porsche track? Is it a Ford track? And how do those manufacturers break down? Ferrari's got some good drivers in here as well this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there were 4 Ferraris, most of the Reese's. There were 12 Fords, 18 BMWs, and 16 Porsches. Porsche's getting more and more popular as the season has gone on.
They did start with 20.
Yes, then it dropped and it dipped dramatically.
At 20 at Sebring.
But we haven't got the race winner. We haven't got the highest I-rating driver, apart from Nishimi, of course, in Aychan Guven. So perhaps their attack's a bit blunted. It does look like a bit of a BMW benefit if we just look at practice, but that's not even qualifying. But you kind of think sometime Ford have to get a break, and one of the drivers has to not be punted off whilst in a great position.
Well, and let's talk about the weekend, Ben Constantiouris, because we have 2 of the drivers who won the Monza 12 hours at the weekend paired up together in a GT3 Audi for WRT. That is Mirko Bortolotti, regular driver for Audi and the VAG concerns over the last few years in real life. Kenton Cook jumped in with them at the weekend, and they had a 1-2. So they are full of confidence coming into this race this Thursday evening.
Yeah, Kenton Cook needs a break, really, doesn't he? He's been so fast.
He was brilliant at
last
Monza.
Couple of races. Was really consistent, but a different type of race in Monza. That was a 12-hour race. That's all about just being consistent. It's fast, of course, but you don't need to race quite as hard as you do in these 90-minute races. I noticed that Bortolotti is not on the not in this practice session as we now click over to qualifying, and so I don't think he's about.
Very different track as well, as Tim Gray, our executive producer in London. Thanks again to Cisco and Drew, part of the team who've been working so hard in this past 3.5 months. Extraordinary to think that this is 3.5 months since we started this lockdown. Once again, they'll be burning the midnight oil in Boston, Massachusetts, the headquarters of iRacing. Brilliant work that they've been doing along with their colleagues for the last 3.5 months. Thanks, guys. Wish you all the best. And Drew, particularly, our thoughts with you this evening. Keep your chin up, and we are getting ready to go qualifying. 22 minutes, just under 23 minutes to the green flag dropping, and we do have cars on the circuit. Any second now we'll start.
James France in the Porsche.
You can hear the unmistakable flat six. This is the number 32 car of James France, the man from Toronto for Fast MD Racing, and he's already on the circuit round the old. It's great seeing the old tree again, but it is slightly off-putting because, particularly for the drivers who've been there recently, that is going to be a completely different look, and you can't actually, as you commit to the first part of the corner, see the apex and the exit point onto the back straight, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is the advantage of having been there is going to be taken away slightly by this not being the track you're used to being around. Yes, it follows the same basic shape, but because it's narrower in a great number of areas, the curbs are certainly very different. They are much wider and more forgiving curbs nowadays.
There's even a bit more runoff at the exit of Oak Tree Turn, which has been paved and paved
and that's
and paved.
going to slow it right down.
Yeah.
The exit, so they've got a chance really. They've got to learn the track. They've all had a few hours to do it, but you're suddenly running in you're running in a much tighter environment. You've got to be much more careful, much more precise, because as we said before, the penalty for going off the track is great in this ice-like grass.
Shea Adams been crunching the numbers. She did the preview for us on Midweek Motorsport earlier on this week, and since 2014 in the real world, winners at VIR in GT Le Mans have been, in order, Ferrari, Porsche, Corvette, BMW, Porsche. So everybody's had a go here.
Apart from Ford.
Yes, apart from Ford.
So therefore, it must be the time they're going to win.
And just remember, guys, that they only have 2 laps to get their qualifying done. And I'm actually on my screen watching Nicky Katzberg, who just put it in the wall. So Nicky is going to carry damage into this qualifying. We're watching what looks to be a very, very twitchy BMW, but that's trying to get a bit of temperature into the tyres. They're not doing those crazy lockups that we saw in the last event because of the track's long enough to get some temperature. Here's Bruno Spengler on his lap. No traffic to contend with. They're all on their own circuit, but they only get 2 laps for it.
And if he goes slightly off track, as he almost did there, you will go what's called a 1X, and your fast lap will be deleted. So the track limits are incredibly severe. There's no man writing a report to phone the stewards up about. It's simply if you pull out into the car, and it's a kind of like almost an invisible bond right in the centre of the car. If it goes outside the agreed area, the fair area, you will get a 1X, and you will lose that time. So you not only have to go as quick as you can, you have to stay on the track as well. As that's Rob Wickens now coming towards in the FAF Porsche, the number 9. This is Rob's second race, running with, I'm not sure he's still running with his handbrakes. I know he wanted to try and get the brake onto the steering wheel paddles as he recovers from that horrific accident, IndyCar accident a couple of years ago. And sweeping down to the end of the lap now. This is very difficult at full speed, the left and the right as you go into the hog pen. And now he's just trying to start, so it puts full power onto the front straight, going past the pit building, and you can see the awnings are all up in the pit lane. And they'll come straight down to the straight. Of course, the front straight isn't actually straight. It's got a kink about 2/3 of the way through, just before the actual start-finish line, and we brake hard into turn 1, the horseshoe, which is a much, much tighter hairpin than you think it's going to be. And it's
20
quite nice
drivers at set lap times at the moment, with Bruno Spengler the fastest man, as you can see, and we see the 10 car putting it in the wall. Now, hang on, the 10 car is Katzberg, so Katzberg has had an absolute disaster for qualifying. And I don't even think he has set a lap or will set a lap, because he only gets 2 chances. And he was off on his warm-up lap. He was off on his first lap. His second lap will be a warm-up lap, and then he'll be given the flag. So for a man who's right at the sharp end of the championship, Katzberg's had a shocker.
And that championship, this is a championship, And I think it's 8 points, isn't it,
8
Nick?
points between. It's swapped over the last couple of races, but Spengler put an excellent performance, excellent damage limitation performance in the last round, really, at Road America. Managed to come through the field, and he has an 8-point lead over Nicky Katzberg. And as Ben rightly points out, the best that Nicky can now hope for is a warm tyre lap with a damaged car. I think he has hit the tyres on lap 1, warm out lap 2, the first lap, so he can now, it would be actually making it worth his while to try and run a lap now with a slightly damaged car and take because if he goes out again, he'll lose the third lap and it'll be a warm up. So he's going to need to do something, but he's going to end up at the back of the grid. He's not going to be in the front unless he does it superhuman. And if he ends up at the back of the grid, the problem he's got is it's impossible. Well, it's impossible. It's very, very difficult to pass. Back on a Philip N comeback from a couple of rounds ago, and Philip came from 46 to 4th. But, you know, it's still very hard when he needs to finish in front of Spengler. He needs to at least reduce the gap by a couple of points going into the last round in a couple of weeks at Watkins Glen.
Very impressive to see Augusto Campino in the Ferrari up there in third position, because there's not many Ferraris. They're not well represented. I would have thought this is a bit of a Ferrari track, though, because the Ferrari is a very slippery car. It's a very fast circuit. So it, for me, is a Ferrari Ford track. But we've got a Ford in second, a Ferrari in third. And actually, the first of the BMWs, apart from Spengler, who has the pole position, you've got to go down to John Edwards in sixth. Another guy who is missing, Robbie Foley, didn't get enough practice in, and so the Turner Motorsport driver is not with us tonight.
That's interesting. A lot of drivers are not just prepared to risk it in this series anymore, are they? They want to be there and they want to make a positive show. This is a tricky track. I remember we ran here for a while, ourselves, Ben and myself, running for the in the skips, which are much easier, and even that, it took, you know, a good, I would say, 70 or 80 laps before you actually had every single nuance of this circuit worked out. And that's just to compete at the club level. So if you want to compete at the top level, you want to get many hours as you can, not just to hone the setup, but also to work out the best way to run the track. And there is certainly on this downhill section after the oak tree, half the back straight, the 13, 14, 15, the roller coaster, the 16 and 17, the hog pen, really complex bed, and it takes a long time to even really work out which of the many options is the best way of getting around that section.
Kenton Cook is on the pole position, just 1/100th of a second ahead of Spengler, but it's a really mixed up front couple of rows with Koch, Spengler, Fluker and Vanthor popped himself into fourth. I was really worried about Porsche without having Nick Tandy and Ayachan Guven, who have been their two stars really in the series. They've managed to somehow tempt Shane Van Gisbergen into a Porsche for this round. He was BMW before, but was kind of bullied, if you remember, by the BMWs. Kind of not really a works BMW driver, more of a pseudo works. And so he's moved across to Porsche. And I'm just trying to see where he is on our qualifying. And he's in fifth. So he's done a great job there as well. It's a really mixed up grid. We've got a couple of guys, Matt Griffin we're riding on board with now, who's looking to set his second time, but most people have now set their times, and we just looking at the tail of the field, Katzberg did not get a time in, Colin Braun didn't get a time, Corey Lewis didn't get a time, and Jules Gounon. So those guys are going to be at the back, and Philip Eng is at the back. He's 37th. Just to give himself a bit more challenge.
He started down in the 46th and ended up fourth.
Yep.
At Mid-Ohio, which we thought would be difficult to pass on. Extraordinary.
And of course, he is running a different colour scheme, not the red Team Austria, but the colour scheme he's with
ZF.
Is blue. Oh, well, obviously
blue and yellow. ZF, yeah.
But just
or ZF, if you were.
There is no advantage in waiting to the end of qualifying, because you are qualifying, as Ben said earlier, on your own. You have the 2 laps are set in the 10 minutes. The track doesn't improve on your own personal part of the track. You just run those 2 laps.
Just a quick message for Drew. Can you just check your Facebook messages? I've dropped you a couple of notes on there. As we look at the qualifying results from that practice, that qualifying session, it goes over so quickly. Kenton Cook on pole, 1:42.774 is 0.010 of a second away from second place. Bruno Spengler for BMW. Then Ford, Rodrigo Fluger, who's had a pole position already this year in the 47 Motorsports car. Then the 912 was next up. So we've got a decent decent mix, Nick Damon, of manufacturers at the front end of the field.
Yeah, there's much more mix than you would think after practice. We've managed to get Fords, Porsches, and even just a little bit further down, and it's been Ferrari in that top 6. So all 4 manufacturers in the top 6.
And count Ferrari.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, that's Agustin Canapino, real world motorsport star, and I think 4 times a champion in the national championship in Argentina in touring cars, has raced in IMSA up to DPI with Juncos Racing. Jack Hawksworth, the best of the Brits in the Ford, and we have got a really good mix. Ben Constantiouris, that must make your heart absolutely sing to see Ford, BMW, Porsche, and a Ferrari in the top 10.
Especially a Ferrari, because they really haven't been well represented so far, and getting Canapino on board with them is fantastic to see. He is the best I-rated driver in our field at something like 8,000. Bearing in mind, you start, when you first enter into iRacing, you start with 1,350, and you work up in increments of like 70 odd per race if you have a really good race. So just imagine how many races he's had to have done to get himself successfully up to that point. It is possible to go backwards. One of our colleagues, Joe Bradley, has an I rating of 600 because he's actually gone down.
And it's nothing to do with me this time either.
First given. But there is lots of different experiences. Riley Dickinson, in fact, has an I rating of 361, which is incredibly impressive to have gone backwards that far.
That really is someone who has overly optimistically entered races they weren't qualified for, because you can do that. You can think, I'll give it one a go, and you end up in a race where everyone's incredibly good, and I'm last, and you still lose all the points. So it is a constant battle to keep your I rating up. There's also the safety rating as well, which isn't really counted for much here, but does account in your iRacing progression to your various licenses as you move up. But yeah, I mean, it's a very good indication. Really, anything over 3,000, 3,500 as an I rating is a very, very good driver. And you get to 7 or 8, you're kind of an alien. So so we've got a fantastic mix of chassis. It's the first time we've seen all 4 chassis in the top 6, and also with a couple of stragglers at the back who'll be fighting their way through in Nicky Katzberg and Philip Egg. We are set up for a cracking 90 minutes of racing here at Virginia International Raceway.
So, Ford versus Ferrari versus BMW versus Porsche, all in the top 10. And that, frankly, is brilliant stuff around the serpentine, rolling hillsides of the green of Virginia International Raceway. But that, at the moment, is the quiet side of the track. The silence is about to be broken comprehensively as we're ready to go racing for round 5. Michelin presents IMSA iRacing at VIR, and it's live in sound and vision right now. Good evening, everybody, and welcome along to round 5, the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational. This is Michelin Presents IMSA iRacing at VIR, Virginia International Raceway, a circuit that we lost for 3 decades in terms of competitive motorsport, back in the real world and available for us in the virtual world as well. Hello, everybody. I'm John Hindorf with the IMSA iRacing team here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast booth. We're just over 9 minutes away. Nick Damon and Ben Constantiouris to join me this evening. They've been part of all of the previous 4 rounds, and once again we're lining up half a century, 50 cars to get ready to race, all in GTLM, mirroring real life. The IMSA racing over the last few years at VIR since 2014 has been actually a little bit later than that, but has been a GT only affair with no prototypes involved, although the outright lap record here is still held by Klaus Graf in a Muscle Milk Open prototype, a white, black and red car that he flung round here. 42 qualifiers we have had, and that is people out on the circuit. Will we get a few more joining in at the end who haven't turned laps? We're going to try and link up now with a guest this evening, and hopefully I'll be able to hear what they are saying at the moment. And delighted to welcome Tony Menard, the Motorsports Director of Michelin North America. Hello, Tony. How are you this evening?
Good evening. I'm doing well, thank you.
Tony, it's an absolute joy to have you on board with the virtual version of this race. Michelin, of course, big partners with VIR, and actually you use the facility for a lot of real-world testing for your street tyres.
Yeah, that's true. We have the pleasure to count on the VIR team and the team of Connie Nilholm to help us on a regular basis for track days, for testing, and we are extremely happy tonight to be able to present the iRacing Pro Series IMSA by Michelin at VIR. It's a combination of good news for us.
The situation at the moment is, to use a Ron Dennis explanation, is less than optimum for all of us around the world, and there's a lot of things going on outside of motorsport. How has Michelin adapted to the current situation with COVID-19 that has caused so many problems?
Indeed, we have been touched around the world by the crisis, and so I think the chance we have is somewhere we have an international presence, and we learned a lot from what happened at the early stage in China. Because we have facilities over there and we have factories, and there was a kind of transmission of learnings and know-how between the Michelin teams around the world, from Asia first to Europe, and you know that our headquarters are in France, and then to North America and now South America. So it was tough. It is tough because the business is down, and if we speak about motorsport activities, everything has been stopped around the world. So we try to adapt. The company has as well started extremely early to work on how can we support the situation today. So we are producing masks. We are producing sanitizer. We have launched several initiatives with our subsidiary working on 3D printing to help hospitals and supply equipment. So it has been a tough time. So waiting for the right moment to resume activity, but in the meantime trying to help everyone around the world with our company and outside of the company to face that situation.
Tony, anyone who knows a little bit about accents and dialects will have noticed that although you're director for Michelin North America, there's a French twang in there. You're very proudly brought up in the region of Le Sarthe in department number 72, which of course is Le Mans.
Yeah. It's somewhere a kind of destiny, because indeed I was born in Le Mans. My family is living in Le Mans and close to Le Mans, and you know when you are born in Le Mans, the yearly event when you are a kid and when you are an adult later is 24 hours, and moving to North America now and working in the motorsport environment, I'm extremely happy to on a regular basis to use some references to my hometown and my home country to discuss and to engage with people, because indeed Le Mans has a meaning in the racing world, and I'm extremely happy to know a little bit what lies behind the race, and to have the chance to live it several times when I was young.
Well, can't wait to see you and talk to you in person, Tony, at Michelin Road Atlanta for Petit Le Mans, and hopefully as well at the Circuit de la Sarthe in September, of course, as it will be this year.
Yeah.
Tony Menard from Michelin, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Have a good race.
I'm sure we will. The Tony Menard, Director of Michelin Motorsports North America, joining us in the Haggerty Global Broadcast booth here. Here's how they'll line up. Kenton Cook on pole position in the Ford from Bruno Spengler for BMW. Then another Ford, the 47, Rodrigo Fluker. Not the fastest of starters. Rodrigo likes to take time to get a heat into the Michelin tyres. Then Lawrence Vanteur, Shane van Gisbergen with his best qualifying since he's come into this championship, and we know how quick he is later on, so the strategy may well play out there. Jack Hawksworth and Richard Highstand on 4. 5, John Edwards and Colin De Filippi, real world teammates for BMW. Richard Westbrook starting further up than we've seen him as well. Shinji Mishimi might be a little bit disappointed there. Row 7, Carl Masson and AJ Allmendinger. Good qualifying for Dinger as well in the 60 car. That's one of the IMSA Sullivan 5 cars they've got, and 3 different manufacturers. Tom Gorman, the qualifying hero in front-wheel drive in Michelin Pilot Challenge in the real world, has Sebastian Priaulx in the Ford, the 111, the Nelson car for company. Then row 9, Jesse Krohn and Matt Bell for Rebel Rock Racing and the Urban Grid liveried machine. Riley Dickinson, Daniel Morad on row 10. Row 11, Ben Waddell and Harry Tinknell. Matt Griffin for Risi Competizione Ferrari, who won here in real life a few years ago, as Scott Hargrove in the bright green number 92, the full Top Gear car. Tristan Nunes and Corey Lewis on 13. Robert Wickens back with us again after a super race a couple of weeks ago. He's got Aaron Tillett for company, and then it's Tristan Vautier and Joel Miller on row 15. Tyler McQuarrie and Mason Filippi are on 16. Michael de Quesada is back with Joao Barbosa for company on 17. Inside of 18, it's the number 19 car of Parker Chase, another one of the IMSA Sullivan cars. And then behind him, Nick Bull in the 00. You see, that for me, that means Dick Dastardly and Wacky Races. That's what I grew up with, that 00 car. Philip Eng with the ZF colours on his car rather than the red and white of BMW Team Austria. Tom Long and Nicky Katzberg behind them. Jules Gunon and Colin Brown on row 21. So we're about halfway through what we might have seen, or towards the back rather, of what we were expecting to see. And that is your qualifying. So 42 cars on the grid, exactly as Ben suggested, what we'd seen from the qualifying. As we wait for the Porsche to start rolling, let's have a look at the Porsche keys to the race as we bring in my co-commentators Ben Constantiouris and Nick Damon. Patience, particularly in the early running, is a VIR, is a virtue. Ben Constantiouris, there's a lot of places here where it really is follow my leader.
It's interesting, especially as it's a very, very tight track, and more importantly, not only is it a tight track, it's tighter than in real life. This is actually go back in history. This is VIR from 7 years ago. So the drivers who are racing here for real just a few months ago, are finding a much narrower circuit and a much more tricky track with even more, jeopardy if you go off the side, but also a nice tree to go around.
Yeah, the oak tree is still there. This was modelled before the oak tree disappeared. Stay clean, stay quick. Ben, every iRacer knows this, but some of our audience perhaps tuning in from the real world, we don't always see the damage, but my goodness me, top speed, which is very important here down the back straight and the front straight, that can be affected by even just a little brush with another competitor.
The smallest of contact will damage the car, perhaps not visually, but the driver will feel it. And as you say, one of the first things to go is top speed. Top speed important here. Therefore, keep your car away from barriers and keep your car away from other cars. Very important when you've got such a busy field.
Nick Damon, we put this in our Porsche keys to the race for every event and the tyres. There's a tactical element here. This is a track that doesn't have a high wear ratio. You've turned some laps here in the virtual world over the last week trying to get a bit of data. 2, 4 or no tyres?
I'm going to say no tyres. I think that unless the composition yellow falls particularly absolutely perfectly, those 28 seconds are better spent on the track than getting a new set of tyres.
Well, even then you might take a quick pit stop and not take tyres to get track position, frankly.
Exactly, yeah. Fuel. Everyone will need to take fuel. As you say, it's a thirsty track, an hour and a half. You're going to need virtually probably a tank and 3/4, so everyone's got a reasonable stop, which Ben Love's been keeping a good eye on. But I don't think they're taking tyres. But then, that's probably got a man manning the pits.
And managing all of those resources, Ben, is super important to getting pace when it counts, which is in the last 15-20 minutes.
Absolutely. After the safety car period is when you need to be pushing. Before, if you're in a comfortable position, settle in there, save the fuel, save the tyres. We've got a bit of confusion going on here as people need to get themselves in the right order. Luckily, no contact, because that will also have an issue if they did crash before even the green flag. But everyone seems to keep out of each other. I'm going to watch Nicky Katzberg and Philip Eng. They're at the tail of the field. I just want to check to make sure they can get through the early traffic cleanly, because they will then have a chance at the end of the race.
Ben Considouris and Nick Damon, you'll be hearing from them throughout the race. Ben is effectively our virtual pit reporter. He's scrolling through all the feeds on his iRacing account. He was racing with Nick at the weekend at Monza, finished creditable 21st overall and 16th in class.
Yep, one below where we wanted to be.
We'll be halfway
the 29, want to be 15th, but we just the bad luck at the end.
So, will it be a clean opening for Kenton Cook? The story of his IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational Series here in 2020 is issues early and then fighting back. There's absolutely no doubt, Nick Damon, that Kenton, who won that Monza 12 hours at the weekend in the WRT Audi GT3, he's got pace, but can he get through the opening skirmishes unscathed? 81 degrees, so that's up towards 30 degrees Fahrenheit, and track temperature very hot indeed, 92 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's a nice temperature. They need to get the tyres up quickly. But Kenton is, at least he's put himself in the best possible position. There's only one person liable to take him off in the first corner, and that's Bruno Spengler, who himself doesn't want to get damaged because he's going for the championship, and he's already advantaged Bruno. He's at the front, his only rival, 8 points behind, but of course also about 36th place behind the grid, Nicky Katzberg. So Katzberg's got to come through, and Spengler can be very, very conservative. He just needs to score some points.
At IMSA Radio, if you want to get in touch with us here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Hello to Dave Alcock. Often used to joke about Richard Westbrook wearing fluffy bunny slippers. He can't do that now. He'll be absolutely lead-footed as he heads off down towards the first corner with the rest of them. Kenton Cook's got an absolutely quality run from pole position, and he's late on the brakes as well, so nobody can get up the inside of him. Went a little bit wide. Ian Vassar-Sullivan with a Ford there as it turns through 3 different car manufacturers for the 5 entries from Ian Vassar-Sullivan. But what a spin! And that is the leading Porsche that's gone around.
It's Lawrence Van Toor.
That's Lawrence Van Toor. Oh, goodness me. And that looks like damage. That was running from NASCAR turn to the left hook. And it's not finished yet.
No.
Faf Racing's in there. Robert Wickens getting turned around. The white, red and Motul car. Side by side, 2 more Fords. One being the Ian Vassar-Sullivan. This is great news for Kenton, who is able to get away. Rodrigo Fluke has come into second place. No, he's still in third behind the red BMW of Bruno Spengler. Oh, and a huge incident going up the hill with 2 cars coming together. Those were cars that were recovering from that third corner incident. We'll get back to that in a moment as we watch the leaders head up towards the roller coaster for the first time. Nick?
No surprise whatsoever that we had problems going through NASCAR Bend, the left hook 3 and 4, because it's one by one, even though you think it shouldn't be, and there were at least 25 cars trying to get that piece of tarmac. That second accident we saw just in the background, I think that may have been caused by a bit of netcode actually. I think I saw a car suddenly appearing in front of someone which he then hit. But that whole, when you have 3 wide going into a snake-like pass which is funneling you in, the tippy-tappy thing, I don't think, to be honest, that it's going to have done most of those cars who got turned around much damage, because a light turnaround doesn't tend to do much damage. Of course, what it does do is you lose loads of time, and there is a possibility when you're facing the wrong direction, you then get a serious hit. But I think a lot of those cars will be able to pick up and run. Now they have to settle down, now they have to concentrate, and now they have to make sure they stay on the lead lap in time for the full course yellow, which will then squeeze the field up. But of course, they still need to make some positions up. It is that sort of early lap chaos, not a surprise at all. But finally, Kenton Kook's made a decent start. Spengler second, Roberto Fluger third. Shane van Gisbergen is now the leading Porsche, riding Porsche for the first time. He managed to pull himself through, John, into fourth place. Highstand fifth, Shinji Mishimi sixth, Carl Masson seventh, Campino the leading Ferrari in eighth.
And still,
Campino had contact with Lawrence Vanthoor at the start. Vanthoor lost it totally on his own, no contact from anybody else. Spun across the bows of Augusto Campino, but he managed to continue. But for sure, will be carrying a little bit of damage, and that's how the chaos began.
and it was certainly chaos, and it continued even as they recovered and started to head up through the snake and up the uphill S's already onto the back straight, the school straight, if you will, with the secondary pit lane on the left-hand side of Scott Hargrove, who is in that full torque gear machine. On the front valance of that car, you might just see an RSL logo, Radio Show Limited, the people who are behind IMSA Radio, along with IMSA and NASCAR Productions. And those are the people who produce our apparel range, our clothing range. Through into the top of the hill then, and now diving down towards the hog pen. Just when you think, Nick, that the lap is over and you've done everything that you need to do, you get down the hill and the cambers are wrong and you've got the hog pen onto the front straight.
I have thrown so many decent time laps down on the hog pen. You've got 75%, you think you're going to be straight through and you just slide off. Man who hasn't slid off is Bruno Spengler, currently second and very, very happy where he is and relaxed as you could be. He looks like he's just going out, well, not even a Sunday drive, looking like he's just having a little bit of a look about. He's playing a chess game, couldn't he? He's so relaxed.
It's extraordinary, the paucity of movement, just as he would be in his BMW if he was racing in IMSA. He's got the wrap-around screens to give him the peripheral view, and he can actually see the wing mirrors, and what happens is you will actually see what's behind you in the wing mirror, and that is so important, Nick Damon, for the idea, particularly in those early moves when the fields and the restarts, when the field's close together, to get an idea how close people are.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible help. You do have a spotter, you don't, like a NASCAR spotter, a computer spotter telling you if someone's to your left, to your right, where they are, but if you can actually see them by having a quick glance as you would do in real life, to your right or to your left, it's a massive advantage. And Spengler has settled down really nicely as he comes down the back straight and he begins to get the toe and move forward towards Kenton Kook, but Kenton there breaks a little bit later and sweeps into the very difficult turn 13 of the roller coaster. These guys making it look easy, but trust me, they are thinking all through these corners about how I can keep the car balanced. There's a couple of grass there stolen by Kenton, which often could be a major problem. He's now running full on confidence. What he has to now, Kenton, is not make a mistake, not blow this fantastic start.
Well, he's got exactly the start that he wanted. Meantime, after the accident early on, Ben Constant-Juris, has anybody called into the pits, or have they decided to soldier on?
Unfortunately, Robert Wickens was in the pits, not for very long, just a 4.2 second stop, so didn't have a huge amount of damage, but obviously felt the need to go in the pits. Same with Lawrence Vanthoor. Colin Brown was in the pits for a bit longer, 31 second stop for him. But plenty of cars with contact in that first lap. Sebastian Priaulx, Matt Bell also involved in that first incident. Haven't actually got to the second one yet. There's been so many cars involved. But there will be a lot of damage at the tail of this field.
Well, Sebastian Priaulx, another driver, Nick, who's had no luck at all. Battling just outside the top 20 with the Fords, the BMWs all together. And there goes Tingle hits the side of the 25 car. The Team Red BMW with Connor De Filippi, and the 55 cars got damage as well. That was in the left hook.
They are really having problems in measuring how you get two cars through the very tight left-handed left hook, because you come off again another tight NASCAR bend. It kind of widens out, and there's the different speeds as you can take through that turn 3. But hit 4, it's a heavy brake. There's one car only rear the line, and the other cars want to let you through. Certainly when you get the right-hander afterwards, it's going to be carnage. So this isn't particularly surprising me. I'm just surprised that the drivers aren't being a little bit more sensible, knowing what damage can do, but they haven't perhaps just given themselves a little bit more time.
There was a Ferrari spinning before the green flag. Alan Prosser has pulled that out, and that was coming down from the roller coaster down towards the hog bay. And that all happened before the green flag.
Doesn't surprise me because don't forget, the back of the train gets the green sign actually when they haven't even hit the straight. They know it's going to happen. He probably just put his power down whilst he was already on off camber, and in doing that he's just spun it because he's on cold tyres, so just a bit too keen to get on the throttle. May, of course, we give a little tiny nudge by a man behind him, who knows, but it's very, very common and really annoying to have instances on the rolling lap, John.
Yeah, and the Junkos racing car of Augustin Canapino, the 66 car, sitting in behind Calmason in the bright red Porsche. So that's the battle for 7th, 8th and on down over as they head through the snake and up the uphill S's. Magnificent part of the circuit where there really is only one line, and you have to just be patient. Remember how Porsche keys the race earlier on. Be patient, because there really is just one line. Patience is a virtue here at VIR. Now into the fast first part of the Oak Tree corner, and a much tighter exit than it is now. This is retro stuff in terms of the track layout, and no nice tarmac runoff on the outside of Oak Tree at turn 12. Gaggle of cars running down the Skull Straight.
This is the 2007 version of VIR. It's repaved in 214 and 216 and got a little bit wider in various places to make it a little bit more easy, and certainly got some more advanced curbs. John, the big mover early on, Nicky Katzberg, he's got the fastest lap and he's up to 17th from about 38th. So he's already moving absolutely the right direction. He has obviously avoided everyone else making tremendous mistakes early on. Philip Eng not moving forward as much as you expect. He's in 30th, John. So, yeah, he's made a bit of progress, but Katzberg now doing what he has to do and get as close to Spengler as quickly as he can.
Katzberg onto the front straight behind Ben Waddell, and in front of that, those two are Daniel Morad and Tristan Nunez. So it's BMW in 16th, 15th the Porsche of Ben Waddell, then Daniel Morad and Tristan Nunez in the Fords, and Sebastian Priaulx in 12th in the Ford as well, despite a bit of damage early on for Seb.
As Katzberg swept by there past Benjamin Waddell, he's now into 15th, and now he has 3 Fords, and he's trying to get up the inside at the
left hook.
He did it as well. I think there's a little bit of acquiescence there by the Daniel Morad car.
Okay, yeah.
So Morad obviously I think wasn't particularly going to force the issue, as he probably realises. I think the drivers do realise about the championship implications. You do have what's called a relative screen, so you can see the 3 cars ahead of you and the 3 cars behind you, and how far ahead behind. So he knew that was Katzberg. He knew where Katzberg was.
We've had Tom O'Gorman in and out the pits in the number 94, and Parker Chase in the pits as well. Ben is watching all of that. Was that a couple of the damaged cars? It's far too early for a strategic stop, Ben.
I think Tom O'Gorman took a tow because it was a 2-minute stop, so it was a long stop. I haven't seen whether...
Explain what that is for those who might be watching for the first time.
Yeah, so if you've crashed your car so badly that you can't drive it back to the pits, you do have the option of effectively control alt delete, and the car will reappear in pit lane. Virtually, though, they calculate the time it will take from them to get the car from the position in which you've crashed back to pit lane. So if you do it close to the pits, it will be shorter than if you're doing it miles away from pit lane. Normally it's around 2 laps, but so he will be a good lap behind, and Parker Chase is now contributing the same kind of thing. He's up to a minute in pit lane as well. Conor De Filippi, I don't think we addressed. He's also taken a trip to the pits, 20 seconds stop. And
he had contact with Tinknell, didn't he? Yeah.
That's right, yeah. So you're talking about the Alan Prosser collision before the start. I did catch that when I was watching the rolling up lap. Tristan Vautier was the Porsche in there, and it was the Michelin Ferrari.
I thought it was the Ferrari. Yes, good call. That's the in the colours of the sponsor of the race. Battle for the lead is closing down. We'll keep an eye on that as we try to pick through what happened earlier on here at Michelin Presents IMSA iRacing at VIR. Now, into the first corner, Kenton's got away, went a little bit wide, but that was a smart thing to do because it meant he braked very, very late indeed in that chrome purple. Porsche, 2 Porsches side by side, one of the Ian Vassar-Sullivan Porsches, and there goes Vantoy, just loses the back end right in front of Canapino in the Junkos Racing Ferrari, and then frankly carnage breaks loose behind, because at that point, Nick, people are checking up. You're trying to get on the throttle when people are slowing down in front of you.
The thing to remember is, if you do slam the anchors on with the cold tyres, then you're, at that point, there's no ABS on these cars. You're a passenger, and the reaction is, when you see something sliding in front of you, how can I get past it? Can I avoid it? Can I know. And someone spinning around in the early corners of a large race is always going to be a disaster waiting to happen. A disaster not happening is Nicky Catsburg. Catsburg's been let through by Nunez and Priaulx as well, because Nunez and Priaulx are scrapping like anything, and they haven't been letting people through much earlier. But what they've decided to do is they are obviously not blocking Catsburg's move forward to 10th championship, and he's now moved up into 12th from about 38th. So pretty impressive run so far. Also now, it looks at the front, Spengler beginning to try and put some pressure on Kenton Cook. Kenton, though, as we've often seen, when he's got a bit of space in front of him, able to drive solidly and speedily.
Sean McCarthy saying, reminder guys, he's tweeted at IMSA Radio, it's tour time plus repairs plus service time. It's you can't have a fast repair in this one, so you always limp back if you can.
Yeah, the tow, whilst it is like a control delete, it doesn't repair the car. The car appears as damaged as you left it, which is very, very annoying actually. So a bit of a tow now. I'm not sure it's enough to let Spengler get past Kenton. And
yes, an aerodynamic tow rather than a virtual tow from a tow truck into the top of the hill then, as they come round to complete another lap. They're working on lap number 7 at the moment. The gap is just 0.2 of a second at the head of the field, with Rodrigo Fluker sitting in third. Shane van Gisbergen, quiet race for SVG at the moment, 3.5 seconds away from the lead, and they're going to get traffic. They're going to get traffic very shortly as they come round to lap one of the Works Porsches. I think in front of him is that Parker Chase, who's just come out of the pit. I wouldn't have thought he would have been in Works colours this evening, and I have to say I didn't see how he was qualified earlier on.
The only car in Works colours was Lawrence Van Tordron. No one else is wearing Works cars.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think Shane van Gisbergen is pretty happy where he is at the moment. He's managed to get himself out of trouble. He's in a clear bit of air front and behind. And of course, there's many a slip now between when he actually gets an attack at the end.
Robert Wiggins was right in the thick of that opening lap. One of the Fords, the Ian Vasser-Sullivan Ford, actually did a good thing, didn't come straight back on. But Wiggins got hammered from about 3 different areas. And indeed, even when he was off the track, that wasn't the end of his problems. And spinning the wheels there, just underlining what Nick Damon was saying in our Porsche keys to the race, how slippery it is on the grass. And the errant Michelin Ferrari, which spun at the top of the hill before the green flag, just coming through at the end there.
And Rob will be sitting there feeling really hard done by, because what he did was the correct thing, and he avoided the guy in front of him. Unfortunately, the guy behind him didn't avoid him. Off and back on again for the...
That's the bright red of...
In fact, they're avoiding that. They're avoiding a... is that Catsburg who's gone off and come back on again?
I think it was. That was Calverson who went off, and Richard Westbrook right up his tailpipes in the very light blue.
Catsburg made a mistake. I think they were so busy looking at him that the orange Porsche of Benjamin Waddell was kind of sucked into the error, but it's Catsburg who's now...
It's Calverson in the orange.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
So basically Catsburg lost his score, but got to 12. He's back down to 17th again. So he's pushing so hard. He's literally on the verge of an accident every corner, and he's finally had one. But only 5 places. Don't think he hit anything, just came off, rejoined the track. But again, it spooked some of the other cars, and the 2 Porsches kind of got together, didn't even want to.
So he is... Right, what happened to the BMW number 10? Up the S's then, last time around, right in behind the Porsche, the bright green Porsche of Scott Hargrove. Just hit the curb, on the brakes, locks it all up. It was actually a very good save.
That is a cracking save on that corner, because normally just pinged you straight in that tyre wall, it's game over. He just ran it too far as he came out of... that's called the South Bend. You are absolutely trying to get as much speed as possible to get the final uphill run into 11. He just put a tyre out, and effectively there's just not enough grip to hold the car. But he must have known it was happening early, because he was correcting almost before it had gone off. 5 places lost, bit of a problem, but he's still got plenty of laps, and we've got the full course caution.
Yeah, of course, we have got the competition yellow still to come. Ben, actually, I think I might have misspoken earlier on. There is a fast repair here, but just one fast repair. Is that right?
Yeah, one single fast repair. So anybody who's going into the pits right now, they have the ability to choose not to use it. They can save it for later if they wanted to, but I think everyone's used them already in those repairs, and that's why our pit stops, if they haven't been towed, have been short.
That's Ben Considouris who's watching the pits and the action via his own iRacing rig. And if you are on iRacing, of course, it means you can choose what you're watching. We've got the produced feed from Drew and Cisco and the guys. Got live timing and scoring as well, and we've still got an hour and 12 and a half minutes to go. This is absolutely brilliant. Traffic's going to start coming into it shortly as well. Ian Vassar-Sullivan, they've kind of spread bet this weekend, or this race, should I say.
What they're doing, you see, Joe, they're taking advantage of what you could never do in the real world. You couldn't have one team running 3 cars. It would be too expensive, all the spares and all the setup and everything else. But they can choose to have one, they can spread it.
McDermott there, and Spengler looking at the back of Kenton Cook, the leader, and still just as unmoved as he has been.
In front of Kenton, you can see the pink car out of the window of the BMW, which has actually in the driver's seat, it's a very small letterbox, and that's kind of a little bit of we've got an accident coming off there. It's a 70 car has slid off and taken that orange Porsche with them.
Yeah, that's Carl Masson and Daniel Morad battling for 15th and 16th position, and they're both back on. That was coming down from the roller coaster towards the hog pen at the end of the lap. Do either of them dive into the pits? No, they do not.
Yeah, that was more an embarrassing slide than an accident. In fact, I think in many ways the Porsche just went off the track in sympathy. There may not actually be any contact. It was more a case when Morad slid off, it was a chance to just back off and not Masson to take the small pain of a bit of grass rather than the big pain of an accident. But that's good news for Katzberg, who's back up to 13th again, and he's. Well, the part of the track's called the roller coaster, but the man having a roller coaster so far as positions are concerned is our number 2 in the championship, Nicky Katzberg, back up to 13th again and pushing really hard. Front of the field, right close together. Kenton now has a blue and white BMW. They're flashing away the lights. It doesn't annoy people at all, of course, when it happens. And it does make the car at least 10 miles an hour faster. They sweep down the back straight before they hit turn 30. It is a roller coaster. Now flashing as well. Bruno decides to join the flashing club, looking now potentially to get an inside run, but I don't think so, because of course on the advantage of following a car is that Kenton will be getting an aerodynamic tow as well. And they settle down and they swing into the start of the 14, 15, 16 complex and the off-camber hog pen, which catches so many cars out.
Few drivers putting in there. Sorry, Ben, go ahead.
They've been stuck behind Matt Bell for a whole lap now. Kenton had caught him the last time by as they're on the back straight, and finally looks to the inside and will be able to clear Matt Bell. And will Bruno Spengler be able to follow? Because he's definitely been compromised. And actually, I think Spengler isn't going to be able to find a way through initially. So
should get down the inside here into NASCAR turn 3. That is. And called not because it's a left-hand corner, by the way. There was road racing here from the Stock Car Series many years ago, and that was the corner that caught out some very, very big stock car names indeed.
They had whatever the Camping World trucks were here, weren't they?
Oh no, I'm talking way back.
They were even quite recently had the Division 3 guys here on a road circuit, but yeah.
But the reason it's called NASCAR Turn is we're going back to
pre-70.
Oh yeah, absolutely brilliant. And that corner apparently was the one that most people struggled with. And it got its local nickname, and it stuck, NASCAR Turn. Beautiful part of the world, by the way. And once we get back to some kind of normality, This is a fabulous racetrack to visit. There's so many good places to watch, and the local area very much into their motor racing. It's another track that is carved out of the scenery and follows the ups and downs, the topography of the local area, and the facility itself is absolutely spotless. The roads around here are just like the racetrack as well. And actually, if you fly into DC, there's plenty of places you can fly into, but if you're flying internationally, you're flying to DC and don't take the highway, go the back roads at the bottom of the mountains. It's a lovely drive down, a little bit longer, but worthwhile. And the countryside, as I say, around VIR, absolutely stunning.
And only a couple of miles, I didn't realise, from the border from North Carolina,
Oh,
which
yeah.
of course is the centre of motorsport.
If you, depending on where you're staying, you can quite often cross backwards and forwards across the border as you're driving into the track, because it is that close. Yeah, good point. Very good point indeed. An hour and 7 to go. Battle for the lead. Bright purple chrome of Kenton Cook, red and a little bit of grey and white on the BMW. Bruno Spengler and Rodrigo Fluker just biding his time. I like Rodrigo's style and tactics here, guys, because he is just watching what's going on ahead of him. He's got the recovering Matt Bell back out of the pits after that early schmozzle he was involved in. He's just turned his fast lap a couple of laps ago, fastest lap a couple of laps ago as well. Shane van Gisbergen now 5 seconds off the lead. Then it's Shinya Mishimi in the Porsche, the number 86 car. Jesse Krohn for BMW has just turned his fastest lap, 1:43.9, and that's quicker than the leaders at the moment. He's only 10 seconds off the lead, so still plenty to happen here as this battle for the lead up the second rise now. Start to think about picking up your...
What's happened there?
Well, that looked like somebody was
That
getting
was,
a toe back.
Rodrigo Fluker had a problem.
Was that the 47 car? Yes, it was. He's disappeared off the timing screen.
I think that looked like some form of technical disconnect.
It was the 47, and he's dropped down to 9th position, just ahead of Scott Hargrove. Now, had he had a big off, or did he have a disconnect? The leaders are on the front straight. He was right in behind. He was right in behind the lapped now BMW of Rebel Rock Racing.
Yeah, it's a very
Just
weird
John.
situation there.
Go ahead, Ben.
Very, very odd. Came out of Oak Tree Bend and had no drive, so pulled off to the outside of the circuit to get away from the racing line. And then after about 30 seconds, got drive again. So certainly I would suggest a technical issue at home for him with his rig disconnecting. Not an internet connection issue, but something to do with his rig at home.
Ah, right,
Yeah,
okay.
that makes it. That sounds like it can happen that you can suddenly get a box of false neutrals because the computer isn't seeing your steering wheel, your gearbox properly, and it's one of those technical issues which you think, oh well, yeah, there's no danger of technical problems when I'm actually just racing at home, but it can happen anywhere, and it's happened to all of us. And suddenly the system isn't doing what you think it should do. Not in the middle of races, a surprise, but Rodrigo lives to fight another day, and certainly now what we now see is a lot of pressure on Shane van Gisbergen, which is high stand less than second behind him. So we've got the top two together, and a 5 second gap between third and fourth together.
A bit of overcast in the distance here. That might affect the track temperatures. How will that affect the Michelin tyres? That will be the question that will be being monitored by the support team to these drivers. And you might say, Hindhoff, what are you talking about? Support team? This is virtual racing. You sit in your front room and do that. These guys, particularly BMW, got switched on to this very early, Nick, and they have got a team of full-time sim racers. They've got effectively virtual engineers who will be monitoring things like tyre wear, fuel usage, and working out the strategy calls and feeding that through to all of their drivers, and feeding it through effectively via pits to car radio.
Exactly. They've done hundreds of laps of practice to familiarise themselves with the track, more importantly work out a setup. Then they'll try and run with 3 or 4 or 5 cars, as many as possible, to get an idea of the usage track as you begin to get muck and grime on the side. And then of course what they'll look at, they'll have a basic idea of what fuel consumption is and a basic idea of what tyre wear is, but then you get thrown the curveball of what the day's conditions are, and then they have to react on the fly, and they will have that information, John, about fuel consumption and tyre wear.
Carol Brinks just tweeted to us here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre at IMSA Radio. Maybe Rodrigo Fluke got Denny Hamlin, a child with a remote, perhaps.
No.
Still the best thing I've seen.
Her face.
Oops. Very good. Very good. Coming down towards the hour, these cars will do around here, I think probably 52, 53 minutes. So we're not quite into the window where you can pit and get to the end. Computer software on our timing and scoring predicting 31 laps to go on lap 16 of 46 that are predicted. That will drop a little bit because we will have a competition yellow, and of course we have a pit stop as well to add into the mix. Initial thoughts then, after that carnage earlier on, Ben Constanduris, what we're seeing is a bit of cat and mouse at the front of the field. We wondered what Kenton could do if he got through the first few laps. Well, he's mixing it with the guy who's bossed the championship.
Yeah, Kenton's holding station, and Bruno's not putting too much pressure to try and get past him right now. Same goes for Shane van Gisbergen, who's in third, with Richard Heistand just behind. In fact, they've just caught Matt Bell, so they've got to do what Kenton did a couple of laps ago. Everyone's kind of holding station. Nobody's pushing too hard. Even Nicky Katzberg has now kind of plateaued in 10th position. I think we're waiting for pit stops. We're waiting for the caution period, and then this race will then kind of explode, if you like.
One thing you've got to remember to do before you go into any online racing is make sure that your updates and antivirus scans turned off.
Yes, absolutely. Windows update. I appear to be in a wall as a rather too attempt to get out of the way by the yellow and white portion.
That car's already was off at the left hook at the bottom of the hill just before the leaders caught up with it and has just gone off again.
Now, John, one thing to remember, as Bruno Spengler follows Kenton Koch so closely, he is saving a small amount of fuel the whole time.
He's got a good run here down the School Straight.
I think he's not interested. I think he's actually using Kenton to push a hole in the air for the very big BMW, and he will save a small amount of fuel. Now, it won't be the difference between a stop or not a stop. It will basically be the chance to actually refuel less. He'll be saving, a tenth, a half, a quarter of a second a lap on his refuel time. So this is a very clever idea. Just stick behind, take the advantage of the drag. Don't try and get any closer than 0.3 or 0.4 of a second. And you might, after a long period of staying behind Kenton, he may be even able to save 2 or 3 seconds of fuel, John, in the refuel.
That was Parker Chase, by the way, that dived off the track a couple of times with the leaders behind them. We're going to get to see how much additional pace, if any, Bruno Spengler has in a moment, because he is so close now that I kind of like I'd kind of like him to back off just a little bit because it's very difficult concentration wise to drive that close in real life and indeed in virtual reality to the car in front.
He's obviously got great confidence in Kenton Koch. He's decided he's a guy who can trust in what he's going to do, and he's decided, I'm going to sit here for this first part. I'm not going to make any challenges. I'm just going to sit here for this first section of the race, see what I can save, see what I can learn, monitor my tyres, monitor my fuel, make sure everything's going fine, because he's not even attempting to dart out or move forward down the back straight where he would get a good enough toe to start thinking about it. He's not looking to unsettle Kenton either. He wants Kenton to know, I'm not going to come past you, Kenton. You just carry on being my big pole punch, and that'd be great. And this is what it's about. He'll be obviously there if Kenton makes a mistake, but he's comfortable with the fact that not only is he now in the pound seat of where he wants to be tactically, also they are still managing to be further away from Shane van Gisbergen, still 4 seconds behind them, though he has gained a little bit during traffic. Obviously, if Shane starts to gain much quicker, then Bruno might have to get the hurry up.
And Nick, do you remember at the very, very beginning of this series at Sebring, I was commenting about how surprised I was with Bruno Spengler's performance. Apparently, that kind of set off the rumour mill as we see pit stops beginning here. And that Bruno Spengler was doing a Daniel Abt and actually not participating himself. But as you can see by the cameras we've got set up this evening, we can see that he's driving himself. And I did an interview with Nicky Katzberg, and he confirmed that it is Bruno. It's just that Bruno is so determined. Yeah. 6 months ago, he was useless. Now he's so determined determined that he is better than Nicky Katzberg, who's been doing this for 15 years, much to the annoyance of his teammate.
Yeah, and I think that sort of dedication, back with the fact he's had great backing from BMW engineers, he's dealing with a good teammate who can set him in the right direction. He obviously has the basic talent in racing. He just has to get used to having those less inputs, that no internal gyroscope, and drive around that. But and he's applied himself, and in many ways, last I mentioned it, this is one of the reasons I think that the issue with Daniel Lapp was Daniel wasn't prepared to apply himself and do the 6 hours a day of practice. So he wanted the easy way out. There is no easy way out to get good at anything. It's 10,000 hours, you become an expert.
Number 7,
Augusto Canapino has been in the pits, and he's just come out. First legit pit stop, I would say. 45 seconds stationary, fuel and tyres. Given up on the jacks.
That's interesting. So if they're going early for tyres, either he thinks that's his big chance, because he thinks he'll be able to make up that space. He's not dropped a lap, and he'll be able to make up that time when we have the competition yellow. It'll be very, very interesting to see if the leaders take tyres. So I don't think it's necessary from my testing. It was Ben very, very pointedly pointed out my testing is at a significantly lower speed than these guys are going. So all Porsche into Nissan battle. 48. Oh, and it's resulted in an all Porsche into Nissan bang.
And that again is Carl Masson involved there.
Corey Lewis he took out.
Yeah, that's 12th and 13th position. Sebastian Priaulx makes up a spot in the all-white Multimatic Ford in behind him, and there's an opportunity for better still. And again,
chaos.
Bright yellow Porsche going
Gisbergen?
back. That was one of the Ian Vasser-Sullivan cars. It could have been Van Gisbergen.
Hystad's ahead of him. Yep, he's lost that position.
Yes, absolutely. Good spot, Nick Damon. IMSA Radio, IMSA TV, together for the iRacing Pro Invitational Round 5. Michelin Presents IMSA iRacing at Virginia International Raceway. Priaulx in the pits. The 111 car for Multimatic. So decides with 55 minutes to go and a competition yellow. I still think that's going to be pretty tight. Part of chase.
Been off and had an accident, and he's bent his wing. So when he would now, he should come into the pits and pick up the free, the speedy repair and the fuel at the same time, because he'll be losing time as long as he runs with a car like that. So the 97 car in trouble. That's
a change of car from the entry list, running in the Porsche for Ian Vasser-Sullivan, rather than the BMW, or as originally we expected to see him in a Ford.
Yeah.
But Ian Vasser-Sullivan have spread their chips around that rear wing on the left hand side for Van Gisbergen. Then will he dive into the pits this time around? We must be getting close to somewhere near the window. He's coming through NASCAR turn 3 and in towards the left hook. High stand in the blackened. Oh, he just got his right-hand Michelins on the dirt and on the grass, just underlining what Nick Damon said in the countdown to green and in our Porsche keys to the race. There is no grip. It's super slippy, and that accurately replicates it's like having the race in the early morning with still a bit of a dew on the grass, and as soon as you get on there, it's all over the place. Katzberg, after a prodigious rise towards the top 10, comes into the pit lane from, I think he came in from 11th position. He's going to drop down a little bit now. And the question I want to know about these BMWs, Ben, so please keep an eye. Tyres or no tyres?
Tyres up on the jacks for Nicky Katzberg. Priaulx is 15 seconds quicker in the pits than most of the other guys. So Priaulx definitely did something different to the rest.
2 tyres
but
maybe?
I'm watching possibly, but Katzberg at the moment, been in the pits now stationary for 30 seconds, drops down off the jacks. It's only a 32-second stop, but he did take tyres.
Well, so I think that's 2 tyres, not 4. I think, and we've seen this before, haven't we, Ben, where the BMWs have done that in the past. We'll see if we can get in touch with BMW Motorsport and the Multimatic Ford team and get a word with them. But you've got to fuel all the way to the end. And, they've been running for half an hour, so the fuel should be about the same, Nick. So the only thing that's going to be different is 2 tyres or 4 tyres.
Yeah, and it does seem this tactic of 2 tyres, and it will be the 2 left-hand side tyres, because they're the ones that take the greater burden, being a clockwise circuit. And if Katzberg's doing, bet that Spengler's going to do it. And can Kenton just take 2? Now, Kenton lost a lot of time in traffic trying to get through Priaulx amongst others. But interestingly, once again, despite having an opportunity, Spengler opted not to try and overtake him. At one point, you can see he was almost holding himself on the brakes so as not to get involved in this kind of 3 or 4 way battle behind them. Jesse Kron now is in 5th. It's Kenton Cook, Bruno Spengler, Richard Highstand in 3rd in the 4th. Then Tsuno Mishimi in the Porsche in 4th. Then Jesse Kron in 5th. Shane Van Gisbergen running a genuine 6th at the moment after that accident, which took out his wing but nothing else.
First car that's made a pit stop is Philip Eng, the number 26 car. That's the it's normally the red and white car, the team BMW Team Austria. This week it's the BMW ZF team, so it is in the ZF colours of blue and yellow.
But was that a proper pit stop, Ben, or was it just a repair
That's
pit
exactly
stop?
what I was going to
Katzberg's
ask.
fallen behind him, which seems unlikely if it was a proper full-time pit stop, unless Eng is something amazing unseen by us.
Yeah, I've not got Philip Eng on my list of people who have pitted, but that's potentially because my computer hadn't seen it. So he's running 13th spot, so it's running well at the moment.
So
last lap 1, so his pit stop was on lap 1, which is a repair from damage. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So he just needed another stop to get him on fuel. Let's check in with Robert Wickens, who had a great result last time around. He's been refining his rig. If you didn't see him last week, he's driving for Pfaff Porsche. That lever that he uses with his right hand is the brake pedal, effectively. Remember, Robert's still recovering from that horrendous looking IndyCar accident, but he has made great progress and really competitive. Still using the paddles for the shift, but using that brake. And the way I think the most impressive thing about this, Nick, is the way that he moderates the brake pressure using that. That's not a parking brake, it's not a handbrake, that is instead of the brake pedal, but he still has to then turn if he's trail braking with one hand on the steering wheel, and yet he's adapted to it.
Yeah, I was just watching that. When he came through the top bend around the oak tree, he was braking, turning, accelerating all at one time with one hand on the wheel, and I was thinking, I can't do that. I need at least 3 extra limbs to do that.
So take a lap on board, across the start-finish line, through the little kink after the start line itself. Turn 1, long 180-degree right-hander, down through the gearbox, braking all the way to the first apex, balance the car, down through the gearbox, little flick of the left fingers there. Turn 2 is absolutely flat, is it? Yes, it is. Tricky turn 3, and somebody spins right in front of him. That was one of the AVS Porsches. Again, that surely wasn't Van Gisbergen having an issue, was it? I don't think so. Might have been Parker Chase. Through the left hook, and now beginning to head up through what's called the snake. There's one line through here, and now you're starting to climb towards the uphill S's. It's all about getting the car balanced through here. Up through the gearbox for Robert Wickens in the Pfaff Porsche, just hitting the curb, and hear the wheels coming off the ground. Big dab of brake before the left-hander at the top of the hill. Go off there, and you're in literally another state before you can come back. Oak Tree, 2 parts to Oak Tree. The first one, you can go in trail braking really quick, that it's more braking for the second right-hander there, and you want to get a clean exit because it's a long straight afterwards. Over the first brow, then there's the cut-off onto the Patriot Circuit on the right-hand side. That reminds you where you are, coming up to the top of the hill in the roller coaster. Braking in very quick into the left-hander, then still slowing down over the top of the brow. The camber is really hurting you there because it wants to fling you down the hill to driver's left. Then back on the throttle, but it's still the hog pen at the bottom of the hill. A tricky double right-hander that brings you back onto the start-finish line. There's a little bit of curb on driver's left, but not enough that you can take any liberties. But you want to take, again, as much momentum as you can on the start-finish line. And that was a very tidy lap indeed in the Pfaff Porsche with Robert Wickens.
Yeah, I think on board you can see just how tricky it is when you get to the bottom of the back straight, going through 13, 14 and 15, because you are doing everything at once. You're turning, you're braking, you're repositioning, then you're having to brake some more. So you're effectively braking for a very long period. You just scrub off probably about 160 miles an hour down to about 40 or 50. And then you've then got to balance the car back up again for the hog pen, which is just built. I think they only put that there to catch you out when you think you finished the lap properly. It's just a really nasty piece of design. As into the pits come the first two.
2 litres into the pit lane. Gilles Gounon in there as well. And there's nothing between them. Both of the cars absolutely pristine. By the way, I'm told by Jess Westbrook, the significantly better half of Richard Westbrook, that the pink fluffy bunny slippers have now been replaced by fluffy unicorn slippers. I'm not sure he's wearing them while he's driving, but she tweeted that. Very close in the pits, into the pits, very close parked in the pits as Gilles Gounon comes out. Here comes Scott Hargrove in the 22. That's the full torque gear sponsored car, another Andy Blackmore design, as is the Michelin Gilles Gounon that we saw earlier on. Also coming in, the 7-0 car is Daniel Morad in the WRT Speedster Audi Sport Ford. And if you're wondering why there are some manufacturers that have got their names on other cars, it's because there isn't a GT Le Mans Audi. 2 litres out, very quick pit stop. There isn't a GT Le Mans Audi. Ian Vassar-Sullivan, they normally run GT3 Lexus. There's no GTE Lexus. So the liveries and their sponsored commitments, if you like, being transferred onto another make and model of car, manufacturer of car, but they carry over, for the most part, their drivers and indeed those supporters. So new leader then, the number 11, Richard Highstand, Ford GT, the two-tone blue and white car, leads by 2.9 seconds from Jesse Kron and Kyle Masson in the 38. Kyle Masson in that 38, who's been battered around just a little bit, now up into, well, in fact, he's going to go into the lead if he doesn't cut him in himself in that bright tangerine car, and he has. He's coming through to the end of the lap now, so will he pit? 46 minutes to go, Nick, easily getting in here. Highstand and Kron in, so we need to be watching for when Kenton Cook comes down the roller coaster. Will that Kyle Masson bright orange car come into the pit lane? Yes, I think he is. Yes, he peels off right-handed, he's in. So next through should be Kenton. Kenton should be the next car onto the front straight. So the bright chrome pink car in the bottom right of the screen, coming to the latter part of the lap. Oh, and he's missed his pit. That is Kyle Masson missed his pit and just had to get a little push back from his team. That's cost him a second or so.
You can reverse a little bit back in the pit lane without getting a black flag in iRacing. Now, amazingly, Kenton Cook came out exactly the same distance in front of Bruno Spengler. So, Ben, were they 2 tyre boys as well?
They were 4 tyres, so 44.3 second lap. Oh, and Richard
That's
Highstand gets turned around.
Highstand getting turned around is on his out lap from his pit stop. He'd led the race briefly.
Was that Shinya Mashimi? It was a Porsche that took him out, but I don't think Machine was scored behind him.
Robert Wickens, I'm afraid.
Oh.
In the FAF Porsche. Thank you. But you are very quick on your replay keys and your rewind keys, flicking through to pick up. Go ahead.
The thing was, Robert Wickens is on track and travelling significantly faster than Highstand, who's come straight out the pits. And I think Robert just got totally caught out by a slower car in front of him. And to be fair, Highstand was right in the middle of the road, but that's very, very unlucky. Just going quickly back to the pit stops then. Cook and Spengler, exactly the same time in the pits. In fact, they were so close that they were almost ghosted into each other. When you're in pit lane, you are actually a ghost, so you can kind of be inside another car, and the pits are tiny here, so it's no surprise that they were very close. Rodrigo Fluker, though, 29.9 seconds, so he was one of the shorter stoppers, like Nicky Katzberg. And did we say Augusto Canapino also? No, he was a longer stop.
Yeah, he was.
So Fluker in third, thanks to a 29.9 second stop, but he doesn't have it, and the caution's out.
The competition caution is out. Hello to Representative Graham Martin. He says, thanks to IMSA Radio for noting North Carolina is the centre of racing in the US. I'm still working with Connie Nyholm on annexing VIR to North Carolina, but I'm not sure if Virginia will agree. Great, lovely to know that you're tuned in. And whilst we've got a moment as well, hello to Madamson, taking a break from reality, literally. So cool watching Robert Wickens behind the wheel. Thanks to iRacing, IMSA, Michelin, and IMSA Radio for the coverage from virtual VIR tonight. If you want to get in touch with us at IMSA Radio, please. Right, it's come when everybody has done their pit stops. This will cool the tyres a little bit. What have we got? 43 minutes or thereabouts remaining. The only person who hadn't made a pit stop is Joel Miller, down in 17th position in the number 82 Ferrari. So he's going to get a pit stop, but will give up his track position. It's still Kenton Cook leading competition yellow in round 5 of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational. Michelin Presents IMSA iRacing at Virginia International Raceway. Whilst we have the opportunity behind the Porsche safety car here at VIR, let's take a field summary, a run through the field with Mazda. And this is how it stands then, with just over 40 minutes to go. The race rundown with Mazda, Kenton Cook in behind the Porsche safety car from Bruno Spengler, Ford, BMW, Ford, BMW, Rodrigo Fluker and Jesse Kron, 3rd and 4th. Shinya Mishimi for Porsche, the 86 car, sits next up. Then Van Gisbergen still there in the top 6, as he has been pretty much all race, despite a little off-track incident that bent the rear wing. Richard Highstand in 7th has led the race in the pit stop cycle. Then Augustin Canapino for Ferrari. BMW, Nicky Katzberg, the number 10 in 9th, and AJ Allmendinger in 10th position. Just outside the top 10 with his fluffy unicorn slippers on tonight, his wife Jess tells us, is Richard Westbrook, the Ford GT in the 67. Then Scott Hargrove. That's a really good run for Scott in the bright green 92, as the two Canadians there with Daniel Morad sitting in behind him, but in Porsche and Fords. Daniel's had an eventful race as well, but holding on to a good position. 14th position for John Edwards, Sebastian Priaulx in the 111 Ford in 15th. In the top 20 made up by Kyle Masson, Joel Miller, Riley Dickinson, Philip Eng, who's still in there with a shout in the ZF coloured machine this weekend, and Tristan Fortier for BMW, the Frenchman, makes up the top 20. Outside of that, well, we're all close back up again. You never know what might happen. We've seen people making positions up, and the 2 and 4 tyre stops now have been balanced out, so some of these guys might have a little better grip than cars ahead of them. Corey Lewis and Jack Hawksworth sitting there with Joel Miller, Ben Waddell. Joel Miller's just made his pit stop, by the way. Matt Bell has also come into the pits for Rebel Rock Racing. Right at the back of the field at the moment, Robert Wickens and Colin Brown, who've both had some issues. Let's have a look at Robert Wickens' incident, which happened just before the competition caution. Remember, he was coming up on Richard Highstand, who had been into the pit. So watch for the blue-coloured Ford coming out the pit lane. Oh, right in front of Richard, right in front of Robert. And Robert goes so far up, he's got to show his pass to get back in again there.
That's Highstand's fault entirely. He's got a relative screen. He would have known how close someone was coming down the straight.
He can't go onto the racing line.
You just need to look.
No.
And what would have cost him a tenth of a second has cost him several seconds. The winner out of that whole process actually was Rodrigo Fluker, who made up for his whatever disconnect issue, gearbox problem, whatever it was. He's managed to get himself back up to 3rd again. So he took 2 tyres, got track position. Nicky Katzberg, slight track position back up to 7th. Richard Highstand dropped to 8th after that coming together. Van Gisbergen with the wobbly wing is 6th. So it is Kenton Cook from Spengler, from Fluker, from Kron, from Michimi. So it's an interesting situation.
Ben, let's have a little update from you of what's been going on in the pits. There were very few people who hadn't pitted before the competition yellow.
Yeah, Robert Wickens went into the pits to repair his car under yellow flags. An interesting situation just as the flag came out, though. Heistand and Katzberg were side by side as they came through the roller coaster, and they both ran wide and onto the grass. Augusto Canapino managed to get past the two of them, but I think he passed them after the yellow flag. So the results in which you went through just a few moments ago, slightly different to what is actually figuring in this safety car queue now, because Katzberg is ahead of Richard Heistand and Canapino is in 9th spot, all because the flag flew as they were kind of sliding across the grass.
It's Ben Considurus along with Nick Damon and me, John Hindorf, spread across the globe, but all together in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre as we get ready to go back to green flag. It looks like the lights are out on the light bar on top of the Porsche safety car, the 911, leading the field around at the moment after a win for Porsche and Nick Tandy last time out. But Tandy, Ayachan Guven and Earl Bamber not in this race this weekend, or this week should I say. I keep presuming races are always on a weekend. I really hope when we go back to real racing we can have some midweek races as well. Just under 37 minutes to go. Tyres will have cooled down. There will not be as much grip, and it is now a sprint to the end for round 5 of the IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational. Michelin Presents IMSA iRacing at Virginia International Raceway. VIR's never looked any better in real life or indeed in virtual reality, with a little bit of overcast just beginning to catch the evening sunshine here on the borders of Virginia and North Carolina. Through they all go. Kook, Spengler, Jesse Kron goes past Rodrigo Fluker into 3rd position. So it's Ford, BMW, Ford. Shane van Gisbergen in 5th position has gone past Nicky Katzberg on the restart as well. Right in there as well, Augustin Canapino is up to 8th position as he's made up positions in the bright orange and green Junkos Racing Ferrari.
No, it was Katzberg going past Van Gisbergen.
Oh, sorry, the other way around.
So
my apologies.
Katzberg's made a good start. All the BMWs
they swapped back again.
properly.
Yeah, Van Gisbergen was up to 5th and Katzberg's gone past him again.
But they both gained place because they were 7th and 6th. So I think it was it Shimi who's lost out? Yeah, he's down to 9th, who's lost big time like that. Everyone shuffled up a position. But Kenton, excellent. He backed everyone up. I think he wanted to make a more of a chance that someone might jump Bruno. Then he went. Spengler managed to hold business with Jesse Kron up the inside of Fluko. Katzberg into Van Gisbergen. So a great opening few corners for BMW. And now, under pressure, is the Ford. And it looks like also moving forward is the Ferrari of Canapino. So this is good news.
Yeah, it's the Junkos Racing car with the green stripe down. It's side by side with Richard Heistand. And they just, I think, avoided trading paint there at the top of the roller coaster. Hello to Tim Fulbroad. He's touched him. Van Gisbergen has hit the number 10 of Nicky Katzberg. The BMW is spinning on the grass. Now, racing incident maybe. Remember, there's no real world stewards here, so he might get away with that. And here comes that battle that we were talking about. I think there's damage to Van Gisbergen. He's slowed as he comes through the right-hander, and he's got... Oh, Canapino's gone through on Heistand. Gets it done, he's got through. And in behind them is Shinya Machini with the bright pink bonnet on his Porsche. And then behind him is Richard Westbrook up in the top 10. And AJ Allmendinger improves to 10. Hello to Tim Fulbrook, who has tweeted at IMSA at radio saying, can we do this every week? Even when racing is back, I'm loving the action.
But the key thing is, John, whether Van Gisbergen hit him or not, the net effect is that Nicky Katzberg has dropped right out of the major points. This is a huge moment for the championship, because it may mean that Spengler might go into the last round already having been crowned champion.
And it does probably mean that he doesn't have to pass Kenton Kook.
Not at all.
He can pace himself now, and he will be getting told that information from his BMW Motorsport crew. AJ Allmendinger, 10th. This is by far the huge moment as he came out of Oak Tree. Crossed it right up, more than a dab of Oppo there. Had to slam it onto the lock stops as the back end of his Porsche was sliding around. Dinger in 10th position. Scott Hargrove just 3/10 behind him. Number 60 running in blue and white colours this weekend. The bright green car is Hargrove, and he's got company. And the company that Hargrove has got is one of the BMWs. It's a 23 car. Now that's John Edwards. John Edwards then in 11th position. Then it's Sebastian Priaulx in there as well, and Priaulx goes through in the 111. So AJ Allmendinger off the circuit has lost a couple or 3 places now as through goes the 38 of Kyle Masson, that bright tangerine car.
Katzberg down to 27th place. I'm just wondering if I saw the end of that Van Gisbergen, and I'm wondering whether that might have been a bit of netcode, because something Ben noticed from the information he has is that being in Australia, Van Gisbergen has very high ping at the moment, so the computer's having to guess a lot more, and there didn't seem to be contact for the bit we saw.
So AJ Allmendinger in the blue and white car, he was coming up to the top of the hill last time around. Did he make a mistake on his own? Oh, he did. Horrible understeer as he just got too deep into the top part of the roller coaster, and the MSR blue and white machine went off onto the track. He's actually done well to hang on to that because it runs very steeply downhill there on driver's left, and he could easily have ended up in the tyres. I've seen that in real life. I think one of the Corvettes went in very hard there a few years ago in reality, Nick.
Yeah, both reality and in virtual, if you go off a little bit faster at that, if he actually managed to get some of that corner done and managed to get around a little bit of the 14. If you go off earlier in 30, you are just heading out of control into the fences, and it's certainly in control is Spengler. Spengler now thinking of that move on Kenton.
So what do you do if you're Spengler, guys? I'll ask you both. Nick, first of all, you're leading the championship. Your nearest contender in the championship has dropped out of a decent points finish. You don't need to win this race. He may or may not, we don't know, have a performance advantage on Kenton Cook. He's looked fairly cool, calm and collected. Ben, if you're, I know what you would do, but what do you think? What do you think Spengler? You'd have it straight up the inside into turn 1. What do you think Spengler will do, Ben?
I think he's a sensible driver, and he doesn't need to do anything. And if he's a friend of Kenton Cook, he will give him redemption after all of those issues that Kenton's had over the last couple of races, and allow him to take victory here. That's, a kind man would do.
Lots of green on the timing screen at the moment. 1:43.6 is the fastest lap of his race for Jesse Krohn. Shane Van Gisbergen in 5th, 1:43.6. 1:44.3 Corey Lewis, 1:43.6 Connor De Filippi. So lots of green now. Everybody, remember our Porsche keys to the race. We said have pace when it counts. When it counts, Nick Damon, is right now. Patience was a virtue. Not everybody has had that. Certainly Spengler and Kenton Cook have done it. They've stayed clean, they've stayed quick, they're first and second. Their tyre strategy looks at the moment like it's paying off. They got track position with a shorter pit stop. But with the battle that's going on between Rodrigo Fluker in 4th, Van Gisbergen in 5th, and Canapino in the Ferrari in 6th, who of these 3 is going to have the pace when it counts?
Well, Van Gisbergen appears to be throwing caution to the wind, so it's going to worry from Fluker. But interesting, what's happening at the front is that Jesse Krohn now is absolutely the Finnish driver. It's getting way closer. So it's now a triumvirate leading up, and Jesse Krohn definitely wants to win, definitely wants a point, and isn't particularly interested in the championship, though of course he won't want to affect Bruno anyway.
Well, and that it changes the dynamic immensely at this point. Bruno, I would not expect Bruno to fight overly hard against the BMW behind him, but Jesse Krohn has the pace when it counts at the moment. His last lap, a 43.5, 7/10 quicker than the 2 cars ahead on the last lap alone, and he's closed in. Well, it was 0.3 of a second a moment or 2 ago. It's not even that now, and this will change the dynamic. We know that the Ford takes a little bit longer to get heat into its tyres. It means it doesn't wear his tyres quite as well, but I've got a feeling, Ben, you told us that Jesse Krohn took 4 tyres, where there's a 2 litres only took 2.
No, they're all on the same strategy. They've all taken 45-second stop. The first of the 2 tyre stoppers is Fluker in 4th position.
Right.
I just want to go quickly back to Nicky Katzberger and Shane Van Gisbergen. Nicky was very much alongside Shane, had the inside line for the second part of the corkscrew, the right-hander, and just moved over too much onto Van Gisbergen, who didn't have anywhere to go, and Nicky kind of ended up with contact and spinning himself out. The main problem was, just because it was just after the yellow flag, that there was then a 42-car train to coming past him. He couldn't get back onto circuit, and that is why he's fallen so far back.
And the battle for 7th is raging on, with Richard Westbrook going side by side with Richard Highstand. The two Fords together at the top of the hill. Can Shinya Mishimi in the pink and black Porsche make hay at the hog pen? Through goes Westbrook. So he's put lead in the fluffy unicorn slippers. He's not using the eco part of the Ford EcoBoost engine at the moment. He's certainly got the boost turned right up and side by side. Here comes Mishimi through the little right kink on the start-finish line, down towards the heavy braking area into turn 1. Just getting a little bit into twilight now, isn't it, really, with a little bit of overcast taking the edge off the sun, but it'll give a lovely sunset at VIR towards the end of the race, with just on 27 minutes to go. 7th position now, new 7th position, Richard Westbrook. I think this would be his best finish if he could hold on to that. Then Highstand, Mishimi certainly looking quick and certainly looking a little bit frustrated at the moment behind Richard Highstand in the blue and white Ford at the head of the field. The top 3 are separated by only 0.6 of a second. That is quality stuff. And now we will see, Nick Damon, what the tactics is going to be from the BMWs. You'd expect these guys to be talking together, because although they're running in different coloured cars, they are both works BMW entries and drivers.
Well, last time out, Kenton Cook did his fastest lap of the race with 1:43.757. It was still minutely slower than what Spengler was doing. Now, Spengler really hasn't got the luxury of sitting behind, because what that has brought Jesse Krohn into play, because they're about 6-7 tenths faster. He needs to try and get past, to try and stretch away from Kenton Cook. Now, the one thing I have noticed about Kenton and the car itself is the Ford has seemed a bit slower towards the back end of races. Not always his fault, sometimes because someone's hitting a wall, but the car doesn't seem as quick in the second half of the races as either the BMW or the Porsche has been in previous events. So he's under intense pressure. He's got to keep on doing his personal best. Realistically, the only place where you're going to get past without a mistake, or even make an attempt without a mistake, is at the back straight coming into 13 with a toe. Otherwise, there isn't without.
Or down to turn 1.
It's not. I don't think there's an overtaking position without.
I think
a really
if you get a really good run out of the final corner at Hogpen, and you can get to the right hand side of the track for that kink, you then it's a battle of the late breakers, and it really is. You have to be very brave indeed, but you can do a block pass because the corner is so long. You can take a little more speed into the first part of the corner, then roll off the brakes, and then turn tight into the second part of the corner.
I think if Jesse Krohn was in second, you might see an attempt at a block pass from turn 1. It's quite risky. I can't see Bruno doing that because he's got a championship in his mind.
How good do the AVS colours look on the Porsche, by the way? We've seen it on BMW, we've seen it on Ford, and now we've seen it on Porsche as well. The M. Vassar Sullivan guys not afraid to mix it up as Van Gisbergen goes down the inside of Fluker in the second part of the Oak Tree turn. That's a super manoeuvre, and that tells me that no matter what Van Gisbergen is driving, and he's been used to driving a BMW in this, what do we know about him? Our Porsche keys to the race, we talked about pace when it matters, and that's right now. And Van Gisbergen saves his bullets to the end of the race. He's clearly got grip to spare the way he tightened down in the second part.
He's certainly got the front end of that one hooked well up, and as you can see, his rear wing has been repaired during his pit stops. The car is back to full health, it seems. But yeah, that was a mastery of actually having the front end when you needed it.
Just battles everywhere on the track at the moment. First, second and third together. Then we've got Van Gisbergen in fourth with Fluker, Canapino. Then Westbrook has got Mishimi, Highstand, and John Edwards has joined that party as well for BMW. That's your top 10. 10 seconds between first to 10th, and little groups of cars that are battling within tenths of seconds of each other. And they're all for significant places within the top 10. Just outside the top 10, Scott Hardgrove is running a great race for that bright green number 92, the full torque gear car. Then it's AJ Allmendinger recovering after his little off-track incident after the restart, the 60 blue and white MSR car. Then Daniel Morad, Conor De Filippi, Corey Lewis, Ben Waddell, Philip Eng, Harry Tinkle, Tristan Nunes, and Sebastian Priaulx for the top 20. That's your Mazda race rundown as we move into the last 24 minutes of the race. But the front of the field, Ford, BMW. We've said, have we not, Nick Damon, throughout this 5-race series to now that there's no doubt in our minds that the Ford has the pace, but they've not been there at the end of the race, and there's a problem for Rodrigo.
Again.
It's Fluker,
same thing again.
At the same part of the track.
Lost drive again coming out of the oak tree. That's a really strong. Now, interestingly, got very tight the top three. Now, what you've noticed as they go round, that normally Bruno Spengler is happier being slightly further behind Kenton Cook than Jesse Croney behind Bruno Spengler. So race now down the high stand and the 23 of
John Edwards. He's made the move. Edwards has gone through. So high stand's lost a position there. Edwards up to 8th now. And high stand just not with the pace in the second half of the race. He did lead this, but of course, then he came out right in front of Robert Wickens, and I think that damage. He is carrying a small amount of non-visible damage that's costing him a little bit here and there. But the leaders are getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Mashimi now has another go at the 67, the blue and for the Gulf coloured, really, isn't it? It's a sort of lighter blue for Richard Westbrook. 6th and 7th is the battle there. Westbrook in his best position so far in the series, and he has really applied himself to this. And after midnight in the UK here, after a very warm and sunny few days here in late spring, I suppose early summer now, been absolutely glorious weather here in the UK, and these guys have been locking themselves away, missing the sunshine to get a bit of practice in. And when I say a bit of practice, I actually mean a lot of practice.
Probably 4 or 5 hours a day for the last few days, just to learn every intricacies of every single bump and every single curve of the track, but also start working on setups and everything
Katzberg's been in the pits.
Yes, he had another off. He lost 12 seconds again. So it's really a case now, if Bruno can take this home into second. I'm not sure about the other people who are challenging overall, like Shimi, whether it will be enough to get the championship. But it could be that this second will be enough.
Kenton running his standard chrome pink colours. He's had the keep your concentration and don't fall off the track message, which he can't actually fit into that rear wing. So he's distilled that down, coming out of a win on Saturday in the 12 hours at Monza for the again on iRacing in a different car, in a GT3. That was AJ Allmendinger at Hogpen, and so he's gone into the pits, 12th position for AJ. He'll be annoyed with himself unless it was an issue beyond his control. He was having such a good race in the top 10. Back to Kenton Cook, our leader, driving the GT3 Audi at Monza at the weekend, along with Mecco Bortolotti, and won the race. So he's got real motivation. Now, what happened to AJ was battling with now is that John Edwards he was battling with, the 23, I think it is, behind Scott Hargrove. No, it was Connor De Filippi.
Just went off
himself. New colour scheme for him this week.
There. I think it may have been a rage quit. Just, that's it, I've had enough. I can't keep falling off, because he could have driven the car back on again. It was undamaged. Shinya Mashimi continues the battle with Richard Westbrook, which is looking for 6th and 7th. Quite static. Cars making their speeds in similar ways in this track. There's no interesting. We're not seeing a point where we think, the Porsche's fastest through turns X, Y, and Z. And
it's true.
And the straight line speed is very similar. Westbrook just moves to block any attempt for a bit of a toe up, and Shinya looking on the outside.
That's very close.
Speed, got a nose wobble in, didn't he, as he came in there. He just had a little bit extra braking.
You really have to be much further alongside to make that work into the first part of the complex at the top of the hill, the roller coaster. It is nominally speaking a left-hander first, but actually you almost straight line that. So the first corner that you take is that right-hander just on the brow, and you've got to be, if you're going to make that one work, you've got to be so brave, but you've got to be further alongside the Mashimi was there.
Yeah, because you're turning it at 150 miles an hour. It's 2.5 cars wide, and you need to have 2 cars in there, and you've got to trust the person you're overtaking wants to be overtaken. It's the top 3 sweep round. Jesse Cron getting very aggressive.
Jesse Cron caught these guys pretty quickly. I thought he had a big performance advantage, but remember what we were seeing earlier on in the Michelin Countdown to Green with our Porsche keys to the race is you have to have patience. Patience at VIR is a virtue, and he's got there, but now he's got to pick his time. And at the moment, he's playing follow at my lead. It cannot afford damage at this point. That would be it all over for him. There will not be another pit stop. It's the sprint to the flag now. I think it looks like he might have a tiny performance advantage, but he's not been able to use it, and that will ebb away towards the end of the race. The tyres and the fuel strategy now really just basically evening out.
As he came through South Bend, turn 10, you could see he was actually having to feather off the throttle to go as slow as the two guys in front of him. Now, it's likely that Kenton is the person who's limiting the speed of Bruno, and Bruno's limiting the speed of Jesse, and Jesse is looking much more like if you look at this, that Bruno's giving himself a little bit more breathing space to what Kenton Cook is, whereas Jesse's right on the tail and getting aggressive as possible with Spengler. I think he's pretty sure if he can get Spengler, then he can get the lead. Now, who was off there next to Scott Hargrove?
Well, Scott Hargrove comes through in 10th. So that was the Richard Westbrook car. Richard Westbrook's gone off. So Scott Hargrove up into the top 10 in 9th. Richard Heisten's gone through into 10th. Philip Eng has gone through into the 11th. So Richard Westbrook, who was on for his best finish, sitting inside. But I think the Fords are struggling for grip now. I really do.
Well, he came off again at 13 or 14, and it is so easy to do.
Ben?
Yeah, just looking at the lap times that Kenton's doing over the last couple of laps, and he is as fast as he's ever been in this race so far. Last lap was his fastest lap of the race, a 43.654. Bruno Spengler's only done a 43.548, so hasn't been much faster, and neither has Jesse Krohn. So actually, whilst these three look really, really tight together, they are just running really fast, and Van Gisbergen, in clear air behind, isn't making that much ground on them.
So what happened to Wesky? He was getting pushed, almost bump drafted by Shinja Mishimi. Now, we saw Shinja the lap before try to get up the right-hand side of the circuit and get to the right-hander at the top of the roller coaster first. He's got a decent draft as he's going down the Skull Straight, dodges to the left, dodges to the right. He's got the overlap. He's going to try and make it stick, and there was the touch. There was the touch.
Naughty.
Westy trying to defend. Shinja thought he was there. I'm not sure. Ben, he was far enough up there on the Ford. Your thoughts?
Well, he'll know that there's a car alongside him because his spotter, his automated spotter in iRacing, will have told him. So he really shouldn't have shut the door, but at the same time, it was an optimistic move to try and get down the inside from that far back.
The low percentage lunge, or was that over aggressive defence, Nick Damon?
I think that Westbrook didn't realise he was going to be there because it was such a back of the car touch, and Machine really possibly should have had his nose back out of that corner again. But that's a bit of a racing incident. I think that Richard will feel pretty hard done by.
Richard coming back onto the track has picked up Daniel Morad as he reversed back onto the track, or at least regained the track. Picked up Daniel Morad, and they're both dropping down the timing and scoring screens at the moment. Daniel in 14th, Richard all the way down in 20th now. But what a run this is for Scott Hargrove in the Porsche with the Andy Blackmore design on their full torque gear. That's race gear designed for race enthusiasts by races. And Shane Van Gisbergen in 4th position, and can see the leaders on the long straight leading up to the top of the hill. He's a long way back. He's 3.5 seconds back, but last time around he was a 10th quicker than the fastest of them, and a couple of tenths quicker than the slowest of the 3 tenths quicker actually than the Jesse Krohn car in 3rd position. Now, Van Gisbergen, we've said this, Nick, so many times before, he is masterful at finding pace at the end of the race. We watched him do it at Mid-Ohio. It didn't quite pay off for him there. He did a tricky strategy, but every time it was a WeatherTech as well, wasn't it? He had a great run and was actually possibly denied a shot at least of having a go at the lead by getting up from one of the back markers. Right, Daniel Morad in 14th position. Tristan Nunez, Sebastian Priol, Rodrigo Fluke, Kyle Masson and Tom O'Gorman and Uncle Tom Cobley and all behind. So that's 14th down to the end of the race, I think, of all line astern coming across the start-finish line. The one you can easily pick out there is Kyle Masson in the bright tangerine. Porsche. That really suits that car, that colourway, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, but interestingly, that's moving back to the front again. You'll find that Jesse Krohn has just stuck the fastest lap of the entire race in 1:43.4. But personal best for Bruno Spengler and personal best for Kenton Cook. But the net effect was a slight gain on Kenton. But three of them all went faster than Shane Van Gisbergen. They felt the pressure of the Australian, who really does come good at the end.
Yeah, Kenton Cook's put his fastest lap of the race in, 43.5, 43.4 from Spengler, 43.3 from Jesse Krohn, 43.7 that time around from Shane Van Gisbergen. The advantage of Van Gisbergen's got is that he's in clear air. The advantage the three leaders have got is that they're drafting each other. And the disadvantage that the BMW's got, and we've seen how strong those cars are, is their speed at the moment is being governed by Kenton Cook, but he's turning his fastest laps of the race now. Shinji Mishimi in 6th. He's only 10 seconds away from the leaders, 43.7. That's his fastest lap of the race. They have been reading the Porsche keys to the race. They have saved some performance in the fast draw, and with a dozen minutes left here at round 5 of IMSA iRacing Pro Invitational 2020, it's Michelin Presents the IMSA iRacing at Virginia International Raceway. Dozen minutes left, and still all three, I would suggest, podium positions up for grabs, and you certainly wouldn't count anybody who's 4th, 5th, 6th on down to probably 10th, because this could end up in a bin liner full of carbon fibre parts.
Yeah, it's either going to be an absolute grandstand finish or a finish that ends up in the stewards' room, because they are pushing hard, and Jesse Krohn particularly really looking to go for it, but they're particularly quick at the moment. Their fuel is burning off. They all took tyres less than half an hour ago, so they are in an ideal situation, and the track will have gripped up, John.
Yeah, that's a good point. The track evolves all the way through. The temperature will be dropping just a little bit. Remember, it was nearly 100 degrees on the track when we started. Now, back a few moments ago, we were watching that conga line for 14th position, and oh my goodness, 3-car accident which involved Sebastian Priaulx, and I think Richard Westbrook was in there, and no surprises, Kyle Besson was in there as well. And I say no surprises not to criticise Kyle, but you can't miss his car.
Yes.
He's the easiest one to pick out. So,
Kenton.
Well, Kenton's not been involved in anything yet. Oh, sorry, Kenton. I'll probably. There's the curse of the commentator. # blame Heindo. So,
John,
go ahead, Ben.
There is a possibility that is going to happen very shortly. They've had clear track for the last couple of laps. They've been able to push as this 3-man team, but now they're catching Joel Miller as a back marker, and we know that back markers are hard to pass sometimes if they're caught in the wrong position, and this could really mix things up. That's the black Ferrari just ahead.
32nd position for Joel.
He spun!
And he spun right in front of the leaders. That's the... second goal. Spengler's out. Leader in the championship has been tipped out as he lifted off to avoid Joel Miller trying to rejoin. He's got damage to the right rear suspension on that car.
That's his toe link.
Yeah,
it just looked like it.
I think the right rear toe link's gone. Let's see if he gets up to speed.
Okay.
Here comes Mishimi. He's dropped down to 5th position. Mishimi's right there in 6th as the Michelin Ferrari regains the track. I don't think that was Jesse Krohn's fault there. I just think that was checking up from Spengler as that Ferrari went. And still no sign of any emotion at all from the championship leader. Just a scant 8-point lead coming into this race.
Yeah, I mean, coming in a crystal ball to Ben, because he predicted this was going to happen. He said, here comes the back marker, something's going to happen, and straight away it did. And it'd be interesting to see it again.
# blame Consti.
Yeah, whether it was actually a tip from the back from Jesse Krohn, or actually he hit the brakes or eased off whilst turning, which can spin you round. So let's see this one again.
Yeah, let's have a quick look back. So the leaders are making their way up. Ben Constantiouris points out that Joel Miller is ahead of them. Joel has a spin right in front of them.
I think that he was going already. I don't think he got touched. I think he was...
Looked like the rear end of Spengler's car, almost as if he pinched the exit of that and just held onto the lock too long.
Too far over the curb and got a little bit of dirt, and it started to go. Now whether he got help, I don't know.
Well, maybe we can get an idea from Jesse Krohn's on board as we have a look and a listen. Turn 2 is flat out. Turn 3 is where Joel Miller goes. That's the NASCAR turn. Oh yeah. What he tried to do was avoid any issue if Miller had come back on. So he pinched into the corner, not coming out. That got the tail end of the BMW going, and just as he thought he might be getting it back, along comes his teammate Jesse Krohn and just tips him around. He has got back going again, but he's dropped down into 5th position. The only good news out of that is that his major contender for the lead in the championship, Nicky Katzberg, is well down the order.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the definition of a racing incident, because Spengler had got the thing out of shape. He got a bit of a tank slapper on. He just got it back. But of course, Krohn, who's sitting 2 or 3 tenths behind you, well, you know, that tank slapper takes more than 2 or 3 tenths away. Where it can't make your car disappear, so you're going to lightly touch him and that pushed him off. But luckily, I don't think he's had any real damage.
Now we get to find out the relative performance of the Kenton Cook Ford and a BMW M8. Bruno Spengler wasn't about to press the argument too much. However, that was because he was in the lead of the championship. However, that's not the case for Jesse Krohn. He wants the race win to get BMW back on the top step of the podium, and Spengler is fighting a rearguard action now with maybe a little bit of accident damage after that touch with Shinya Mishimi. Ben's been watching the lap times and what's been going on. Looks to me as though Spengler may be just a little bit compromised.
Yeah, pace isn't that great, certainly not what it was before. And for me, he just got drawn into looking at the spinning car and analysing where it might go. And by doing that, as you say, pinched the apex and lost the rear end of the car. And the second snap was, he probably would have caught it had he not had contact from Jesse, but sadly Jesse was already there, and now he's struggling. I just want to see what Jesse Krohn can do against Kenton Cook.
Well, they're
coming
traffic.
up to more back markers. Yeah, exactly. So there's possibilities again.
4th position for Agustin Canapino, the man from Argentina, and that would be the best Ferrari finish by some margin if he could stay there. He's got Shane van Gisbergen ahead of him by just 0.3 of a second. That is a podium position ahead of Agustin Canapino at the moment, and it could be even better than that with the sort of battle that's going on. 6 minutes to go. The back marker has been passed. It was another one of the AVS cars, I think, that they've just gone by. Yes, it was. And now Kenton Cook has just 4 laps to the end of the race. It is a timed race, and remember, in iRacing, it's only when time elapses that the white flag comes out. There's no back counting, if you will. So if time elapsed now, the checkered flag would come out as they cross the line. If time elapses at this point of the track as they go down into turn 1, then effectively the white flag would be shown behind them and they would come round to the checker. But there's no back timing of the race. There's no white flag coming out until all the zeros are on the screen in the top left hand corner. Kenton has barely put a wheel wrong here, through the left hook and into the snake. Very tight part of the circuit here. Very, very precise driving required in it. So tempting to just try and straight line it a little more, but the grass is unforgiving and these cars are accelerating hard. They're losing grip at the end of the run on the Michelin tyres, and the Michelin tyres are great, and Michelin do a lot of testing here on the Patriot circuit and on the big circuit as well for their street tyres and their race rubber. But good as the Michelin slicks are, they are not rallycross tyres, and as soon as you get onto the grass here, there's a big difference in the grip coefficient between tarmac and the green stuff. Okay. So we're predicting that this will be 49 laps.
So down the back straight now, it's interesting to see whether Jesse Krohn can actually get any sort of toe on Kenton Cook, because it's interesting, the last couple of laps, I kind of thought that Jesse would come straight up the back of him, straight onto him, immediately start pressurising him, but he just stayed that 3 or 4 tenths behind that Bruno Spengler was, as the battle is royal now for 3rd and 4th, as Augusto Canapino really wants to be the first Ferrari on the podium in an IMSA Pro event, and he's pressurising Shane van Gisbergen. In a way, Shane van Gisbergen pressurises other people. So Canapino down the front straight. Will he be able to throw out the inside? Probably not, but he is getting closer and closer and edging all the time.
How good does the Junkos Racing livery look on that Ferrari 488? as they're coming up to traffic, and it's one of... Oh, and a mistake by Van Gisbergen. I haven't said that very many times in real world or in the virtual reality racing side by side, but Canapino's on the wrong side of the track there. Will he try the over and under and try and throw it up the inside into turn 4, the left hook? There's definitely a performance advantage to the number 66 Ferrari. Can we see 3 different manufacturers on the podium? Even if it stays like this, we would have Ford, BMW and Porsche. It could be Ford, BMW and Ferrari if Canapino can get through. This is the biggest variety we've seen in the closing stages in any one of the preceding 4 IMSA iRacing Pro Invitationals here in 2020.
Top 4 cars are the 4 chassis, and that you can't ask for anything more than that. Ferrari have finally found a flyer at the front in Augusto Canapino, and he's pushing very, very hard to get to Van Gisbergen.
And Nicky Katzberg down the field, but has just set the new fastest lap of the race, 1:43.4, as the battle for the lead starts to get absolutely tasty. And BMW around the outside, there's an opportunity here. Kenton hits the curb on the entrance to the roller coaster and managed to get the door closed in time, but here comes the BMW down the inside again. But then, well, this is now stout defense by the Ford driver, Kenton Cook. The BMW all of a sudden seems to have unleashed some extra power. It's not exactly the Jerry Bruckheimer extra gear, but there's certainly something that is going on here, and it looks like the rear end of the Ford is struggling for grip now, under braking as well. Little bump and run through the first part of turn 1, and the BMW's through, and Cook is off. Kenton Cook is eased off, ushered off, and somehow he manages to hold on to that. I'm not sure that was entirely necessary from Jesse Krohn, because he clearly has a performance advantage, and we are on to the last lap. That was literally starting the last lap of the race. The lead changes, and clearly Jesse Krohn knows that, and he pressed the go button. Basically, he knew time was running out, and now we see what the advantage was for the BMWs and how Bruno Spengler was waiting and biding his time. Jesse Krohn caught the 2 leaders. Spengler went off, and now he's muscled his way to the front, but he's got another BMW ahead of him onto the school straight. Half a lap to go, under a
John,
minute.
I think we've got another lap after that.
Do you think we're going to get another lap? Another lap, Ben, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. We came across the line at 2 minutes to go. A lap is 1:45, so it's going to be tight. And it gives an opportunity for Augusto Canapino also to change positions. And Kenton Cook,
she took on the leader. The BMW's around.
Yeah.
Kenton Cook will feel that was what was sourced for the BMW, was sourced for the Ford as well. And round goes the Jesse Krohn car. He's dropped down behind Van Gisbergen and Canapino. So we might not even have a BMW on the podium here after they dominated the early rounds. And now Canapino is racing Shane Van Gisbergen for second position. This officially is the last lap. White flag will come out on the start-finish line right now, and Canapino battling for second position. Where is... and Machini's up into 4th as Spengler is back into 5th. Krohn down into 8th behind Filippi. And I tell you who else we've lost as well. We've lost Scott Hargrove as well. He was in the top 10 and he's disappeared while we were looking at the leaders, reasonably so, I feel. So Kenton Cook clearly feeling a little hard done by in the change of lead on the penultimate time through the roller coaster, but the second position has not yet been resolved. Here comes the Juncos Ferrari on the Ian Vasser-Sullivan Porsche into the Oak Tree for the final time, and they've got traffic now. Who gets the better drive out of Oak Tree? Pretty even. Porsche getting the draft from the BMW, Ferrari getting the draft from Van Gisbergen's Porsche. The BMW's not in this fight. Meantime, Kenton already at the end of that school straight, and Cook, is this finally redemption for Kenton Cook? He's got 3 more corners, and behind him the battle is raging on. Canapino surely will not throw this away now. It'll be the best result for a Ford and a first win for Ford and Kenton Cook. And Porsche are going to be second by the look of it. If Van Gisbergen can hold on, Kenton Cook, the man who he's home now in North Carolina, wins in Virginia. Kenton Cook for Ford wins it from Van Gisbergen in second. Augustin Canapino brings the Ferrari home in third position. And in fourth, Shinji Mishimi, Bruno Spengler, the championship leader, is in fifth position and salvages some points. What a brilliant finish. Scott Hargrove down in 26th after running solidly in the top 10 towards the end of the race. So there was clearly some incident there. But that is the redemption that Kenton Cook needed. And he now has 2 race wins in the same week, last Saturday and this Thursday. So under 7 days, you're only as good as your last result, and he's been very good indeed in his last 2 races, in 2 very different races, 12 hours of Monza and the 90-minute sprint here. Nick Damon.
Kenton Cook there, amazing there. There's so much respect initially between the two of them. They came through down the hill 13, 14. We saw Jesse Cron back out of an accident which Shinji Mishimi caused, with Westbrook, yes, and they backed out. And they come through there. This is them actually going through that.
So this is coming through to the final part of that. Hello to Mike Rose. What a great last few laps, he said. Let's review what led up to the original change of lead. As Nick said,
from this point, it's all been incredibly respectful.
Yes, it has. But you're going into the last 2 laps, and we thought the BMW might have a performance advantage. So going down into turn 1,
squirrely on the brakes.
It looked like Kenton lost the rear end of the car, and effectively at that point the BMW gets the drive. What I don't think was required by Crom was him pushing across to the left-hand side and easing out the bright chrome pink car.
And that's what's annoyed Kenton, because the tap he got was because he got his braking.
That wasn't the
wrong.
issue.
It was the taking him off the track. So at this point, Kenton's now really, really annoyed, and I expect we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we're going to follow this for the whole of the lap. So up through the S's, Kenton has really got his head down, and almost corner by corner, you can see he's hammering the curbs up through the S's, and then takes a huge amount of speed through the last left-hander at the top of the hill before he comes into Oak Tree. Is there a little bit of an advantage given to the BMW in the draft from the other car? I don't think so. He gets a really good run. Which way does the back marker go? Left and right. And is that a part of the issue? The Ford, at this point, halfway down the Skull Straight, doesn't look to be in position to challenge. This is the last lap. Let's not forget this, as he's coming through, and Kenton locks up the front Michelins. Clearly see it was the lightest of touches, but you're right on the top of the brow there, and there is the issue. Right on the top of the brow.
Having now seen he locked up, I'm now not think he was quite as deliberate as it
was.
No, he
wasn't.
I think it was red mist, and he was just pushing so hard that he actually hit the brake, and that was. And then, so I'm going to let Kenton. That was just driving.
That was actually the penultimate lap. Excuse me, Kenton brought it home. That's the race. Let's move to Michelin post-race tech, and we'll see if we can grab some drivers that have taken part in that. Let's first of all give you the rundown. Top 3, Augustin Canapino in third for Ferrari. Ferrari and the Argentinian's best result. Shane Van Gisbergen has his best result. Second place, backing up Porsche's victory last time out from Nick Tandy. Second place for the cars from Porsche Motorsport at Weissach. And Ford on the top step of the podium. The Blue Oval reigning supreme, Kenton Cook, from now residing in North Carolina, just outside of Charlotte. He takes his first win, and that's been a really productive last 5-6 days for him, having won the 12 hours of Monza at the weekend. Bruno Spengler behind Shinji Mishimi, that's 4th and 5th. Spengler battling for the lead early on, dropped down to 5th position, or at least actually got back to 5th position. He was low as I think he's 7th or 8th. John Edwards, another BMW, in 6th, and the rest of the top 10 packed with BMWs, right down to Jesse Cron in 9th, Richard Heistand for Ford in 10th. Jesse Cron perhaps thinking himself a little bit unfortunate. Corey Lewis for Porsche in 11th. Ben Waddell in 12th. Seb Prior gets to the end in 13th ahead of Daniel Morad, Richard Westbrook, Harry Tinknell and Christian Nunez, a whole clutch of Fords there. Jules Goudon in the Michelin-coloured Ferrari in 18th position. Then Christian Vautier and Kyle Masson in that bright tangerine number 38 Porsche make up the top 20. Not without incident, one should say. That 14 on downwards battle where we were looking at what looked to be a freight train of cars. Rodrigo Fluger, well, he'll think himself unlucky, but he was rather the architect of his own downfall in some respects. Got involved in a couple of incidents, but certainly had the pace early on, sitting in what looked to be a fairly restrained third position ahead of Tom O'Gorman. Then it was Aaron Taylor's Mason Filippi, Nick Bull in 25th, Tom Long, a very creditable 26th on his first outing in this series, Michael de Caseda, Nicky Katzberg, the other championship contender, in 28th position, having at one stage been right on the outskirts of the top 10. I think.
Ran as high as 7th.
Did he really? Right. Okay. Scott Hargrove was inside the top 10. He ran as the high as 7th as well, but obviously a problem for the that car. And then outside the top 30, Matt Griffin, Joe Miller, Robert Wickens he ran into the back of Richard Highstand when Highstand was coming out the pits. Allmendinger had a couple of incidents when he was running well inside the top 10 as well. For Dinger, he'll be annoyed with himself there. James Vance, Matt Bell started badly for the Rebel Rock Racing car and didn't get very much better for Matt, who did get back to 36th ahead of Tyler McQuarrie, Lawrence Vanter, Riley Dickinson and Joao Barbosa. Whew. Kenton Cook. Kenton Cook is with us. Kenton, talking to you again, sir. Congratulations, mate. What an absolutely brilliant run. 2 race victories, 2 very different circuits in less than a week. Well done.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I mean, I hate for it to be that way. Unfortunately, I got in there a little hot, and there was definitely a little bit of net code between us there. I didn't mean to do that intentionally at all, but yeah, it was good fun. My heart was pounding for that entire hour and a half, and yeah, that was good fun. And the paint job was good luck this time.
It seemed to be, yes, it absolutely seemed to be. Talk us through going into, I think, the last lap but 2, as it was going down into turn 1. It looked like you were starting to lose the grip on the back end of the car. I know there was a little touch from Yessi, but I don't think that was particularly deliberate, but then he sort of pulled across on you and put you on the grass. Did that annoy you a bit?
I mean, yeah, I didn't really give any room on the exit there. I was trying to get the car stopped at the apex to prevent the over-under, and I did get it stopped enough, but he gave me a little love tap in the center, and that kind of shifted me up a little bit. But it was, I mean, it is what it is. It's hard racing with these guys. I've never raced with GTLM drivers, and yeah, they're definitely very aggressive, and I knew what was coming to me in the end there, but it was certainly a soft tap in the middle. But yeah, he didn't really give me any room on the exit, and I just had to put my head down to try to get back to him, not with any vengeance, but to just try to get back by him again. But yeah, unfortunately, it ended the way it did. But I'm happy to have won. So.
Just a thought about last Saturday winning in a 12-hour race on Monza, very different circuit here. In the real world, we might have said, well, that's the monkey off your back. You've got a bit of confidence. Does that work in the virtual world as well?
It can't hurt, that's for sure.
And it was very respectful earlier on. You and Bruno were having a cracking battle. Yes, he came to join. The three of you were great. It was almost like the pin was pulled with about 3 laps to go.
Yeah, it was definitely pulled. Jesse had some really good pace there. And it was just trying to keep him behind me at that once Bruno kind of had the incident there with lap traffic. But yeah, he definitely had the pace on me for sure. But it was all about qualifying, really, and I got lucky.
No, that's never been anything other than a strong point for you. But what we said it at the start of the race, and I hope that I didn't hex you. And clearly we didn't. Getting through those first few laps is so important in one of these races, Kenton, and getting through with a car that's undamaged, which this week you managed to do, and now we've seen what you can turn that into.
Yeah, it's nice to finally get a result. It really is. So I've been working hard to be in the fight with these guys, and I'm doing everything on my own with the help of a friend who Nick Johnson helped me with some strategy. And man, did he call the perfect fuel, because we had half a liter left in the tank at the finish line. So we were able to stay out front in the pit stop. But yeah, it's definitely good fun to be able to take it to these guys as a little guy, as they say, but I'm not very little.
And the first win for Ford as well. Do you know what? I nearly said, I've been so immersed in that. I said, we haven't got far to go home from VIR to North Carolina and to Charlotte, but actually you're already at home. That just tells you how much I've been involved in the last hour and a half. It does get like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely very immersive, especially when you've got good people around you that you're racing against, and it's so crazy. It's so crazy to be able to race against, people like this. You just go through the entry list, and it's just nuts. Like, I never in my life thought I would be able to race with these guys, and it's really cool. It's really cool to be able to have the opportunity, albeit virtually, but to run with these caliber of drivers, and who knows? Hopefully, I can get a shot to race with them in real life. But that's another story. But yeah, it was good.
Kenton, well done, mate. Hopefully we'll see you again soon, and it'd be nice to see you in the real world soon. But it's always lovely talking to you as we do. Have a good evening. Have a bit of celebration, and we'll see you for the next one, mate. Well done.
Yeah, thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too. Kenton Cook joining us here in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Well, we've talked to the winner. We're rapidly running out of time. Let's have some final thoughts. Quick final thought from you, Ben. Finally, a Ford on top of the podium. So we've now had 3 different manufacturers in the last 3 races. The BMW stranglehold seems to be broken, at least from the results side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Ford definitely wasn't the fastest car out there today, and Kenton said it himself, but they managed to seal the deal and get a victory, and it's fantastic to see all those different brands. Now it's turn of Ferrari for the next one.
Yeah, okay. Is that your prediction? Hashtag blame Consti again.
I just like it.
No. Nick Damon, you said about the respect in the early part of the race. I think we saw, didn't we, that Bruno was thinking championship there. Anybody who doesn't think that the drivers have got real life emotions, real life thoughts on this, we've always said the competition is real. Bruno was thinking championship there early on. He didn't need to put himself anywhere. And as soon as it became Yessi versus Kenton, that was a different dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously Bruno had been kicking himself the error around the back markers. Those things happen. You suddenly have something thrown in front of you.
It's not the worst result.
And he's picked up 5th, and Nicky Katzberg's nowhere. Though Shimi did gain a few points in, I think will be his only potential challenger. The interesting thing was, I did feel I did think that VIR was going to race well, but would involve a lot of incidents because of the narrowness of the track, and that's what's happened. But finally, Kenton Cook showed us a Ford can win, and Kenton Cook showed us he can survive the first 3 laps as well.
Nick Damon and Ben Constanduris were alongside me virtually in the Haggerty Global Broadcast Centre. Thanks to Cisco and Drew for iRacing's production team. Tim Gray was our executive producer in London. The responsible adult was everywhere, of course. Thanks to you for watching and listening. Saturday, it's the Nürburgring Langstrecken Series with us here on RSL. Join us for that. It's Bruce Jones and me, John Hindhaugh, for a 3-hour race, and we'll be back with the next round of the IMSA iRacing Invitational in a couple of weeks' time. Bye-bye.